Welcome and thank you for joining us for the Board of County Commissioners meeting. This is 9 a.m. Wednesday, August 27th, 2025. First item on the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, citizen input for items not on the agenda as a public hearing, because we do have a public hearing today. Is there any other items? Is there anyone online with a raised hand feature? Okay, so seeing none, commissioner announcements. Last night we had the start of county college, so about 20-something community members. Real good session last night, and they're going to be a commitment to doing this for about 8 or 10 weeks, so that'll be a great event. Thanks for our administration for following up after us. As I said, I didn't stay for that, but you were able to tell them the rest of the story from your point of view, I'm sure.
We were.
Anything else?
I'm still level 3. Okay, just checking. Apparently, I talked to Nathan last night. They are evaluating twice a day. So as it stands now, I'm still in level 3. So thank you very much for everyone that was out there. And, you know, they're all still here working away. So, and if you didn't hear my story about getting rid of junipers before this fire, you can hear it now because they definitely add to the dangerous situation where I live, because we have a lot of them.
Yeah, the people who did home hardening prior to this fire are probably very, very happy about that at this point. I wanted to address the ongoing investigation into the cause of this fire. There is a tremendous amount of speculation out in the community that this fire was initiated from a homeless encampment, which is puzzling because when what people think of as homeless encampments, areas of public land, large concentrations of RVs and campers, that doesn't exist in the area of Jefferson County where this fire originated. I've spoken to neighbors. I've spoken to officials in Jefferson County, and their description is that this area is sort of an off-the-grid neighborhood. There are a lot of regular people, property owners, who live in mobile homes or RVs, on their property. They may not have access to water. They may not have electrical utilities running to their property. But if we're talking about RVs on private property, in many cases where people have permission or are to be on that property from the property owner or are the property owner themselves, we are not talking about a homeless encampment. We are talking about rural poverty. And so I just want to make sure that it's clear to everyone in the community that this fire did not start from a homeless encampment. I've got that from a sergeant at the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office. And, I really wish that some of the people who want to make fires somehow about homelessness would just shut up. Thank you.
Well, we do have the documentation from the City of Bend Fire Department last year saying that over 80 fires were started by transients. So they have it on their records.
Yeah.
So that's documented by another government agency.
Yeah. No, there are fires that start in homeless encampments. No amount of fixating on homeless encampments would roll back the over 20,000 acres burned of this fire. And, just to add a little bit more context, there have been 4 fires over 10 acres in Deschutes County this year. It is possible that it's probably likely that one of them started in a homeless encampment, the Canal Fire. The other ones, Houston, Alder Springs, and this one, I can tell you with great certainty, did not start in a homeless encampment. And so if the Canal Fire was 23 acres and those other fires together add up to well over 20,000 acres, you tell me this year what was the risk to our community in terms of ignition sources?
Okay, moving on. So next item is
This could go on for
consent
days.
agenda. We have a half a dozen items, couple sets of minutes on our consent agenda today.
I did make one teeny correction on the August 4th. It was a neighbor and not my niece, and so moved the consent.
Second.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, Commissioner Dare, Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
and Chair votes yes. Thank you. Item number 7, Veteran Behavioral Health Peer Support Specialist Grant. Thank you for joining us. Good morning, Kristen.
So I'm here seeking approval for an expansion of our behavioral health veteran peer support specialist grant. OHA has graciously offered us an expansion to help support the volume of work that we are experiencing. Over the course of the last grant cycle, our veteran peer has more than exceeded the deliverables for our grant. She has made contact with over 100 veterans in our community and worked more than just contact, but extended periods of time with over 70 veterans, which is almost triple the amount that we were expecting. The amount of need and the volume that she is experiencing is too much for one peer to sustain. And also we've learned through this that the needs that our veterans are communicating with us is that they're needing more kind of case management work and coordination, getting connected to different resources and services within the community. So having our peer pair up with a BHS1 case manager would really enhance the services that we could offer and better support the veterans in our community. So OHA has graciously offered to support that, and we would love to be able to accept those funds and continue this work through the next 18 months. It is a limited duration position because it's, and we don't know if we'll get, but we're excited to have a continuation of this program and of the original funding and being able to expand.
Any questions?
Kristen, does anyone from this program then go to the Veterans Village?
Yes.
Okay. How many days a week are they there?
I don't know how many days a week she's there. She is all over the community. Debbie has made contact, built relationships, and supports all of the veteran programs in our community. I don't know specifically. I can find out for you how frequently she's there.
Right.
But-
I mean, it just, because their program has been so incredibly successful, I wondered how much Debbie is part of that.
Yeah, I mean, she reaches out where there's need. People, our community partners, contact her when they have somebody that they think would benefit from her services, and she's continually like connecting with folks throughout the community. It really depends on the need and her capacity, of course.
Okay. Well, the people that are living there have transitioned from homelessness, and so I would assume that there is need. And I know they've had an incredibly successful transition to their own apartments or their own housing, but I just wondered.
Yeah, I know of cases that she's helped veterans get connected there and enter into that program, and then helped folks get further resources from there. So I know she's working with particular individuals within that program. I don't know the numbers on that though.
Okay. It would just be nice to know.
Okay, I can check. I can look on that.
It's sort of a related question. A while back, speaking to people at the Central Oregon Veterans Ranch, they spoke about how important this peer support specialist was to their ongoing programming there, and what a aid and support this role was. I was just curious whether this position is still working with the Veterans Ranch, and would the addition of this other position help to basically increase presence there?
I would make that assumption. Yes. I know that she is continuing to work with the Veterans Ranch, as well, again, as well as other partners. I don't know to what the extent she's spending time with each of the programs, but I do know that she's receiving referrals and has built the relationships with these programs and is very much connected and getting folks connected to them.
Yeah. Do you have, I mean, so you were talking about kind of the increasing caseload. Do you have, and I'm sorry if I may have missed it, but do you have, numbers to share with us that kind of point to the, increasing caseload and the demand for this service?
Yes, our original grant deliverables was for Debbie to work with 20 veterans over the course of 18 months. She has made contact and connected with over 100 and has sustained interactions with 76 individuals throughout the course of the grant, and has expressed she could do more if she had capacity to do more. She is carrying a lot. This position works with folks that aren't necessarily engaged in other Deschutes County behavioral health services. And so she's carrying a lot of these cases independently, which is a lot for a peer support specialist to do, for anybody, really. But she doesn't have a team around her all the time to be able to support this work. She's having to navigate that with community partners and just, put it together herself. And so that's really a lot. So she has
76 sounds like a huge caseload.
It is a huge caseload. It's more than what our typical staff carry. So she's phenomenal. To be honest with you, she's just done a remarkable job. So we really want to have, the idea of having somebody, a case manager, or ideally a therapist in the future, hopefully, if this continues to grow, to have a team of folks that can go out in the community, meet veterans where they are, and be able to support them in whatever way they're needing would be ideal. So with the addition of this case manager, we'll get closer to that vision.
One more question. So, the Veteran Services Office, it's different functions. They're connecting people with benefits. You're, attending to people's behavioral health needs. But, is there any cross-fertilization, referrals, things like that?
Absolutely. And we work with the VA, we work with the Vet Center. We get people connected to whatever resources they're wanting to get connected to. Some veterans are comfortable working with the VA and some would prefer a different provider. But we have made connections there. One story that we submitted with our grant was a veteran getting connected to the VA and is engaged in services with them now. That was their choice. And so Debbie really works with the individual based on what they're wanting to do, what they're comfortable with, and helping them get connected and pursuing the resources that are most beneficial for them. So yes, we've also really strengthened our relationship with the Vet Center, as I think was brought here recently. We have a therapist from that organization that's working out of our Redmond office, which is helping to support referrals back and forth between that. Debbie works really close with that program as well. So we're building a nice network there,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
great.
Thank you.
Last night at our county college, somebody asked us about, if the health, this is a big picture for health department, not just you, but, a couple hundred people working in the health department, right? Behavioral health, public health, big operation. And it was kind of the question of why we don't talk about it more, maybe at the budget committee and the big picture. And I said, well, a lot of these are Oregon Health Authority grants that come in. And if somebody's offering dollars to provide services, we just say yes at the front desk here, which is wonderful. But as I say, as the county college comes through, get engaged, look for that opportunity. You may or may not be involved directly with that, but there's about 20 something people that are going to be interested in what we do, how we do it, and how it gets funded. So just sharing with what's going on there. So 2 motions in support of this.
I move to authorize the acceptance of the Veteran Behavioral Health Peer Support Specialist Grant from the Oregon Health Authority.
Second.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Dare,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
and Chair will vote yes.
And I'll move approval of the request to add a limited duration 1.0 FTE behavioral health specialist 1.
I'll second.
Any other discussion here? Seeing none, Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
Commissioner Dare,
Yes.
and Chair votes yes. Thank you for the discussion.
So much.
You're welcome. At this time, public hearing regarding dark skies text amendments.
Morning, Commissioner.
Yes. Well, yeah, stay close to the mic as you're speaking. So this is the time and place set for hearing on file number 24725-377TA concerning amendments to the outdoor lighting control chapter of Deschutes County Code. Staff will outline the hearing procedures that will be followed.
Yes, and I am sharing my screen, I think. Yes. Thank you, Chair. The project website and full record can be found at the following link, https:// Deschutes Dark Skies. So that contains the full record, all memos that have been provided to the board, etc. Today, the Board of County Commissioners will take testimony and receive written evidence concerning the proposed text amendments. The hearing is also being recorded. The hearing will be conducted in the following order. Staff, as the applicant, will provide a brief presentation. Agencies, if present, will provide testimony. Then interested persons can provide testimony. Following testimony, the Commission can request staff to answer any additional questions. This is a hybrid public hearing with both in-person and remote participation. Before starting your testimony, please provide your first and last name as well as your mailing address so we can add you to the notification list. For our in-person participants, if you wish to testify, please fill out a blue sign-up sheet and submit it to the board's executive assistant, Brenda. And the chair will call up in-person participants for their testimony. After your name is called, please come up to one of the tables next to me before beginning your testimony. For our remote participants, if you wish to testify, you must be logged into Zoom or have called in using the Zoom dial-in option. When the chair asks if anyone would like to testify, you will need to use the raise hand feature to notify the board. To do this, you need to press the raise hand button on your computer or smart device, or if you called in, dial *9. In addition to oral testimony, if anyone has written testimony to submit, please hand it to me. If you're participating remotely, you can submit your written testimony via email to me at tanya.saltzman@deschutes.org. And I'll put that up at the end as well. The chair and the staff are responsible for conducting an orderly hearing. Any testimony or behavior which is inappropriate will be addressed and may result in that member of the public being removed from the hearing. Questions to and from the chair may be entertained at any time at the chair's discretion. Cross-examination of people testifying will not be allowed. However, if any person wishes to ask a question of another person during that person's testimony, please direct your question to the chair after being recognized. The chair is free to decide whether or not to ask such questions of the person testifying. Prior to commencement of the hearing, any party may challenge the qualifications of any commissioner for conflict of interest. This challenge must be documented with specific reasons supported by facts. Should any commissioner be challenged, the member may disqualify him or herself, withdraw from the hearing, or make a statement on the record of their capacity to hear and decide the issue.
So I'll just acknowledge this is a legislative matter for all citizens of Deschutes County. And this is our procedure, though, to disclose. Does any commissioner have anything to disclose? And if so, please state the nature of same and whether you can proceed. Does anybody have investments in a light bulb company?
Yeah, I've spoken with a lot of people about this, these amendments, and yeah, I don't have any conflicts of interest to declare, and I can proceed.
Yeah, my conflict of interest is personally where I live and the fact that we have a lot of wildlife where I live and I always have to be really careful. So otherwise, I believe I can proceed.
Well, that would probably just be a disclosure, just we're all residents of the area. And I have nothing to disclose and I can proceed. Does any party wish to challenge any commissioner, a member of this hearings body based on conflicts of interest? Is there anyone online with the raised hand feature? Seeing none, the hearing is now open and staff will proceed with a brief staff report.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya.
I have a new computer, so if anything goes weird, I apologize.
You can blame it on the.
It'll probably go fast.
And not myself and my abilities. But thanks for the new computer. A little bit of background and overview, and this will be largely similar to what I've presented for the Planning Commission as well as the work session that was held on Monday with the board. I'm just trying to move my things here. Why are we talking about dark skies? This is just a little bit of background. Light pollution affects sleep, it affects wildlife, and it affects rural character. Central Oregon has demonstrated a growing interest in protecting the night sky for various reasons. And Dark Sky International, which is the main advocacy organization that addresses dark skies, has advocated that the county promotes best practices for outdoor lighting. The goal of these text amendments is to modernize old rules that were written in 1994, and I'll circle back to those in a moment, to reflect new science, new technology, and values. Now my thing's not working. I told you this would happen. My apologies. Oh. Okay. Sorry, I'm going to have to stop and reshare. All right, we'll do it this way. Regional momentum for dark skies. Speaking of momentum, the city of Sisters has recently become a certified international dark sky community. And we're really grateful to them for providing a lot of the inspiration for these text amendments and their advice. Other Oregon dark sky locations include Eastern Lake County, Prineville Reservoir State Park, the city of Antelope, and Cottonwood Canyon State Park. Our proposal borrows tested ideas from these models, especially Sisters, recognizing that Sisters is a different animal. It is a smaller city with a smaller area, but they still take into account a lot of the dark sky best practices, and we are utilizing where we feel appropriate in these amendments. The process thus far, those of you who have been tracking this know that this has been an ongoing issue that has kind of bubbled up and down as capacity has emerged and not emerge with staff. So we're happy to be able to bring it to the board now. So in 2022 and 2023, there were a couple of panels about dark skies. These were with experts in the field, local farmers, the building industry, as well as educators. The feedback that we got from those panels generally supported the shielding of lights, a simplified code, and more education about this, just keeping people apprised of what best practices are and what the rules are. The Board of County Commissioners subsequently directed staff to focus updates on voluntary compliance rather than costly enforcement, which I'll acknowledge in subsequent slides is a little bit of a challenge and has been acknowledged in those panels as difficult to enforce. We're seeking to adopt best practices and guiding principles for responsible outdoor lighting based on the public input that we've received. A big part of this will also be outreach and education. So this is one part of the process, the legislative process, which is actually, rewriting the code language. The second part, which is equally important, if not more, will be education, kind of PR, awareness, and just making people aware of what dark skies are, what the benefits are, what the regulations are, how they can be good neighbors and good stewards of the dark sky community. The current code was adopted in 1994, so quite a while ago. The Those lighting rules mostly depend on bulb type, different types of bulbs, as well as the wattage. There's a whole series of tables in that chapter that we will address in these amendments. It addresses partial versus full shielding based on the brightness of the bulb. So there's a lot of kind of levers to operate within that code in terms of what kind of bulb you have, what kind of brightness. There's exceptions for certain specific uses like motion detectors and correctional facilities, to name a couple. And the code was mostly focused on shielding rather than light direction or trespass. The legislative approach and the challenges today. We're aiming to balance policy with the real world limits. The code has to be easy to understand and apply, and this applies to the people who have to use the code, people who live in the county who have their houses and their lights, as well as code enforcement. Building inspectors in Deschutes County don't review lighting. That is not part of their purview at the way their job is structured. So therefore, the rules must be able to work without that step. So it needs to be clear what they need to do, what residents, builders need to do in that code. Plans are stamped generally with a reminder that people do need to adhere to these regulations. So we do remind people. Enforcement is difficult. There's not a huge amount of official enforcement cases that are called into our code enforcement department. As the board knows, code enforcement is complaint-based, so we don't have people, goes for any kind of code enforcement issue. We don't have people generally driving around looking for violations. It is someone calling in a specific address, a specific complaint, and a potential violation. And those are supposed to be supported by evidence, which is a little bit difficult with lighting. Photos can be kind of altered a little bit. They're not always accurate. Timing involves, seeing these lights in action, and access to private property can all be challenges for our code enforcement team. So emerging from those panels and discussions we've had, simpler rules relate to streamlined compliance and education. It's simpler, it's easier, it's clearer for everybody. So that's our goal with these amendments. A little bit about the amendments themselves. So the key changes, like I said, simplified rules. Basically, we have three central tenets of this revised language. Non-exempt light fixtures have to be downcast, pointing downwards, shielded, fully shielded, and no light trespass. And the code defines all of those items. We've updated a lot of the definitions and also consolidated them and kind of reorganized the text in general. We've added new terms for downcast lights and string lights, for instance, which were not defined previously. As I mentioned before, the complex tables that were based on kind of wattage and partial or fully shielded requirements have been removed. That all now rolls up to those three main requirements that I mentioned at the top of this slide. And then we consolidated some sections. There were some duplicative prohibitions and sign lighting rules that were merged into exemptions. That's mostly just organizational to make things clear and not really a policy change. The purpose statement has been revised based on prior input from dark sky representatives from the panel discussions. It reflects the need for lighting practices to be safe, but also responsible, recognizing that the county's night sky is an economic and community natural resource. It also adds some non-regulatory guiding principles based on those from Dark Sky International. And the City of Sisters did this in their code. This is just putting this in the zoning code itself, which is something we don't always do, but because of the unique nature of Dark Sky's regulatory environment, we thought this would be appropriate. So it's putting in those best practices, the guiding principles, what's the best thing to do, what warm temperature lights are preferred. It's not necessarily regulated, but it's preferred, so it is put in that zoning code so you can see it all together. Like I said, the old prohibition section was removed and consolidated with the exemption section. There was some redundant shielding language that was cleaned up. There were some new and reworked exemptions. So for instance, string lights, which was a topic of some testimony received, that wasn't addressed at all in the old code. Now we address it and define it, explain sort of where it's allowable. The biggest thing I would say is that in residential areas, they need to be off by 11 p.m. or by the close of business if it's a commercial business. Exemptions for publicly owned lighting were refined a bit, as well as search lights.
So Is that off by 11 p.m.? Is that taken from Sisters City
I
rules?
believe it is. Yeah.
Okay, because I drove by at 8:15 the other night and I noticed the string lights were all on. Okay,
Yeah. 11 is
11 is pretty late for me to drive by.
late.
Yes.
But that has been, we've seen that in other codes as well. But
So they've got to all be on timers then.
or you have to go outside at 11, or you set an alarm. But yes, you can.
Well, I
put
mean,
that
this is at their business,
Oh,
so,
for a business, yes. For a
Yes.
business, it's at the close of that business. So if they close earlier, then they would have,
they weren't open that night. So you're telling me those lights shouldn't have been on?
well, if these rules were in place. Right now, there's no.
Well, I mean, it's in the City of Sisters. So I mean, I'm just
yes,
trying to get a
and that is-
handle on this. All right.
Yeah. A brief summary of the Planning Commission process, and thanks for everybody who's participated in that. The Planning Commission had a great discussion about this issue, and I think they were really, really engaged. They had a work session on June 26th and a public hearing on July 10th, at which 3 individuals provided testimony. The written record was held open for about a week more. In total, the Planning Commission received 13 written comments and 2 agency comments. And all of those are available in the record, as well as memorandums that summarize those. So I'm not going to go into the detail of that now. All of those are for board consideration when it comes time to deliberate. All of the testimony received for the Planning Commission process supported the proposed amendments. 7 of them supported adoption as is. Others had suggestions for further refinements. Some of them had some questions as well. At deliberations, the Planning Commission issued a recommendation for adoption of these amendments with 2 items that they wanted to flag. They wanted to first change the nonconformance window from 5 years to 3 years. So in other words, once these rules, if they are adopted, if they become in place, people will have to be in compliance within 3 years. The Planning Commission felt that this was still even a little bit long, but this was a more reasonable timeline than 5 years. And then second, they recommended that the county pursues dark sky certification within 5 years. And this is a topic we've received additional testimony about since the close of the Planning Commission process. So this will be a topic for deliberations. But essentially, and I'll note that Bill Kowalik from Dark Sky, Oregon, has provided some very helpful testimony that explains what exactly has to be done to achieve that certification. And I refer the board to that when it comes time to deliberate. It's a combination of making additional changes to the amendments that do go above and beyond what is proposed right now, as well as some other factors that would be beyond the amendments themselves, some kind of measurements and coordination and that type of thing. So there is additional testimony about that in the record, and that can be discussed during deliberations. Just briefly, some additional changes that staff made based on Planning Commission discussion to the copy of the amendments that you have for your hearing today. Modified the definition of light trespass ever so slightly, noting that light trespass exists when a person is able to see direct illumination from an off-site fixture. This came from suggestions from Dark Sky representatives as well as Planning Commission discussion. And then there was discussion about holiday decoration exemptions, which was a hot topic in the work session on Monday. And these are all up for further discussion during deliberations, but I wanted to call them out now. The proposed amendments have a 45-day allowance for holiday lights, so 45 cumulative days the whole year. Upon suggestions from both the Planning Commission and Dark Skies, we changed those to fixed dates and added a few cumulative days for flexibility for other holidays. There were some suggestions for maybe changing those dates. I believe it was the Monday after Thanksgiving or something like that. So that these are all up for discussion. So
Question.
that's, yeah.
The first bullet there, to see direct illumination from fixture, what does offsite mean? Why is that word there?
Well, the idea is that the trespass, you don't want to be able to see it from a neighboring property. So if you can see, an offsite fixture, if you can see your neighbor's bulb, like the actual bulb or the part that emits the
So to
light.
see a bulb from offsite,
Correct.
is that the right wording for that then? From an offsite fixture?
We believe.
Because I understand the concept. I was just looking at the words here.
Yeah. And that's what we've suggested, and I believe that came also from Dark Side. We can certainly further discuss that, or if there's any
Yeah. So
clarification.
just the clarity, because
That's
I
the
understand,
idea.
being able to see the bulb is that direct
We
light.
can, of course,
So-
noodle with that language.
Yep.
When we talk about someone physically coming and trespassing on their property,
you phrase it from the perspective of your property, right? So it would be an off-site fixture, or, someone's coming from off-site onto your property.
That's a good way of looking at it. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Just want to make sure it says what it means to
Yeah,
say.
no,
That's all I was thinking.
Some of the language is a little
Yep.
difficult, and our goal is to make this very clear, so we want to make sure everyone can understand it. So thank you for that. Public testimony received for this part of the process. Since the conclusion of the planning commission process, we've gotten 30, and probably by this morning, closer to 35. So thanks everybody of written testimony. Some of these are repeat individuals, just adding on to their testimony. And that testimony will all be summarized during the board deliberations. So I'm not going to go into the details of those right now because they are still active and coming in.
So along those lines, we've gotten emails directly and I've engaged with a few of them. And it's always just, good input and a little bit of response here. So I don't know if there's a full accounting of everything that's gone to our inboxes or not.
There should be. Everything that has been sent to the citizen input email has been forwarded to me by Angie or Brenda or other people, and I've responded them. So those are added into the record.
Yeah, as I say, I just don't think about accounting for some of those, but
We got
I
it.
think we're going to be, okay. I'm sure they're sending it to multiple people. if
Yes,
they're
and
very
Mr. Chang has
engaged.
forwarded the ones that he's received as well.
Yep.
So yeah, we're on top of it. So the next steps after today's hearing, the options to move forward are to continue the hearing to a date and time certain, close the hearing and leave the written record open to a date certain, close the hearing and set a date for deliberations, or close the hearing and commence deliberations. With that, here's just again my contact information as well as the website. And with that, I will conclude my.
Oh, I do have a question.
Yes.
Is the American flag allowed to be illuminated? Because that is a rule if you permanently have your flag hand in the sky. Okay, that is in our, okay. All right. Just wanted to be sure that,
Yeah, there was testimony to that.
right. Yes, Kevin, a US Navy veteran, I read his email.
Yes. So with that, I will stop sharing and turn it over back to the board.
Thank you very much. This is a public hearing on the matter. We have a couple requests to speak. If anybody wants to speak, please fill out the blue form and then also online with the raised hand feature. So we'll get started. Mr. Bill Kowalik. Here we go. This is your day. We've been talking about this for years.
Thank you. So I am Bill Kowalik. I live at 1182 Northwest Redfield Circle in Bend. And I'm the current chairperson of a nonprofit group, Dark Sky Oregon. Dark Sky Oregon strongly supports the recommendations of the Planning Commission about, first of all, the specific update to the 94 lighting ordinance. And secondly, that the county work for dark sky certification within 5 years. Both of these recommendations we think are excellent steps. And I'd like to comment a bit about the part of dark sky certification. So what is that? It's a program administered by the nonprofit group Dark Sky International to recognize communities, parks, lodges, and other areas around the world that preserve and protect the night sky through responsible lighting policies and also public education. As staff pointed out, we have 7 certified dark sky places in Oregon at this point. And it's notable that 2 of those communities are in Deschutes County, Sun River and City of Sisters. It's worthwhile to point out too that the City of Bend has a dark sky initiative currently on the back burner, possibly part of next year's plans. And there are groups in 12 other places in Oregon that are currently working for certification, including the cities of Cave Junction, Lincoln City, also the Eagle Crest Resort west of Redmond, the town of Blue River in the McKenzie River Valley, town of Halfway, and also Wallowa Lake State Park, all working for dark sky certification. So dark sky certification is a very laudable goal, and Deschutes County would receive international recognition for this achievement. There's only one county in the United States presently that is dark sky certified, and that is Teton County and the town of Jackson in Wyoming. So why would we consider working for dark sky certification? The benefits, as staff pointed out, include improved quality of life for people. You get environmental kudos for protecting the starry night sky and the wild ecosystem. you can save energy, and you gain the economic benefits of dark sky tourism, along with the possibility of increased property values. So my last comments, the driver on dark sky tourism is that 80% of the people in the United States cannot see the Milky Way from where they live. So out of curiosity, that large number of people want to see it. And dark sky tourists are particularly attracted to places that are certified as having dark skies. So on the economics, dark sky tourists visit overnight, they spend money on motels or campgrounds, food services. So it's not just a daytime visit. So there's more money spent. And there have been several studies, which I can list three, estimating the dollar benefits of dark sky tourism. In 2019, there were some professors from Missouri State who looked at the entire Colorado Plateau, all 4 states. What was the economic advantage of dark sky tourism to those 4 states, which have quite a few national parks, national monuments, and state parks, which are all dark sky certified. They came up with the idea that per year, the dark sky advantage to that big area was $580 million on top of, whatever tourists spend anyway. So that seems like a large number, and it is, but when you divide it out, it makes more sense among all the possibilities there.
So it's about a 3-minute testimony. Thank you so much.
Okay,
Is it-
thank you.
I know you could go on and on.
Not much more.
Thank you so much. Chris Hill, and then following will be Gail Brown.
Morning. Yes, my name is Chris Hill. I am a board member of Dark Sky Oregon and also a Bend resident at 63212 Northwest Red Butte Court. And I'm just going to continue where Bill left off. Well and good, it turns out that while the specific improvements to the lighting ordinance identified by the staff and recommended by the Planning Commission are very good, that a few more improvements are needed to qualify the ordinance for dark sky certification, including the color of the lamplight, minimize the blue component of light, specifically 3000 kelvins, CCT or lower. Lights, as we mentioned earlier, off by 11 p.m. or within a short time of business closing. Have an inspection of new lighting to check that they agree with the plans. The sum total of lumens on a property has limits. There need to be limits on the brightness of illuminated signs and the timing of when those signs are turned on. Also, a procedural requirements is the inventory of public lights in the county and a plan to retrofit non-compliant lights over some period of years. There are volunteer possibilities to perform the lighting inventory, and this was done actually by people in the city of Sisters, high school students, etc. Another requirement of certification is the measurement of how dark the night sky is in the county. And we have in order ongoing and part of our Oregon Sky Glow measurement network. Dark Sky Oregon has 15 sky quality meters within the county measuring the darkness of the night sky. And we put out an annual report on this. Deschutes County and any incorporated cities that may choose to join in on a certification process would fall under the community class of dark sky places, as there is no separate county grouping. We've checked around and learnt that if an incorporated city in the county does not wish to participate, that city would not be considered part of the dark sky community. Any city wishing to join the certification process would need to separately meet the certification requirements. And thinking ahead, it would be helpful to residents and staff if essentially the same lighting ordinance applied to the unincorporated county as well as the incorporated cities. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I have a question, and I know that Mr. Kowalik posed similar suggestions for improvements. So I mean, I would, you know, I didn't have a chance to ask when Bill was up here, but I'd like it to make it possible for either of you to answer this question, or both of you. But the lumens kind of the limitation on the amount of lumens, the 3000 Kelvin kind of criteria. I'm just trying to operationalize in my head how we would implement these kinds of additional requirements, and I wanted to know about the technology, right? Is this the kind of thing somebody like walks in with a meter of some kind and, can measure the amount of lumens in an area, or like what's the process to, to enforce essentially these kinds of requirements?
Yeah, good question, Phil. So on the topic of the color of the light, 3000 Kelvin, when we look at a light of 3000 Kelvin, it looks pretty white to our eyes, perhaps a little yellowish. And the point is that it's a mix of red, green, and blue colors. Lights with higher Kelvin ratings look bluish, like, a lot of car headlights that are very bright and glaring. Those have much higher Kelvin ratings, like 4,000, 5,000 Kelvin. So Dark Sky International sets the rule on this as 3,000 Kelvin is the maximum, because they are, and we are, trying to minimize the amount of blue light in the white that gets sprayed into the atmosphere, affects insects, affects sleep. So ideally, warmer lights with some lower Kelvin numbers like 2,700, 1,800, or 2,200, which look more yellow or amber to our eyes, are much preferred. But 3,000 Kelvin, a lot of people have those. They're considered warm light. If you go down to Home Depot or Lowe's, you'll see that label, warm light. As far as the measurement of lumens, you count the number of light bulbs in a particular area, a property, sum up the rated output of each light bulb, and that gives you, the total lumens for an area.
And Bill, don't we have actual equipment to do that measurement?
Yeah, we in Dark Sky Oregon have a spectrometer which allows us to assess the color of a light from a distance. Otherwise, you look at the light bulb and get the reading off of that, or you look, find out what the manufacturer spec is on that light bulb.
And we do want to clear up one other clarify one other thing, is that when you're talking about lumens, is actually the brightness. What we're talking about is the temperature or the color of the light. We just want to make sure that that's understood.
Well, there were two different things.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to picture, to imagine, here's the scenario. We implement these additional requirements. They become the law of the land. Someone is concerned about their neighbor. They file a code complaint. So if I'm tracking you correctly, the way that the, code enforcement officer could objectively measure these things are, they could take a look. They could basically go to the property of concern, look at the light bulbs, and there would be a color spectrum on noted on the light bulb itself, and there would also be a number of lumens on each noted on each light bulb. So you would just basically make the rounds, count the light bulbs, and check the numbers and add up the lumens.
Yeah, that's correct, Phil. But I do think also that in reality, it'd be the case where the light coming from a property was, way out of proportion to national, illuminating engineering standards, which is where Dark Sky International gets these numbers. So it's kind of a national standard for how much light is reasonable to put on a property. And, it's kind of common sense when you see that versus after a little bit of experience, you can appreciate some places that are overlit and not, others are not.
And to tie it to some of the other measures or provisions we're talking about, how likely is it that a property that was kind of exceeding these thresholds, the lumen limits or the color spectrum criteria, how likely is it that they would also be light trespassing? So I mean, if someone is concerned and they report light trespass, how likely is it that, if you're not violating light trespass, then then these other things aren't a problem, or vice versa? How likely is it that if you are violating light trespass, and you fix that, it would fix these issues as well?
It might very well fix them. You can imagine that if people are not so concerned about the lighting that they have on their property, that there'd be several violations of these new rules from that one property. But fixing one, in our experience, resolving these is primarily a matter of education and voluntary change of a person's light. And part of Dark Sky International's rules regarding certification of a dark sky community is that the private folks have like 10 years to come in compliance. So, that's a lot more than the 3 years that the Planning Commission recommended.
I think one thing I'd like to add, if I may, we are actually actively working with the Bend Parks and Recreation District on the upgrades that they're doing to the lighting at the sports fields at Pine Nursery Park. And we're actively working with them to actually get 2 of their fields certified under Dark Sky International.
Yeah, that was very helpful to understand. Thank you.
Thank you. Gail Brown.
I'm here to address the lighting at Oak Harbor Freights. I live at 63020 Sawyer Reach Lane, which is a little subdivision right next to Sawyer Park. I've lived there since 2005. In 1999, our subdivision began being built. In 2000, Silver Eagle Trucking was at that spot and they went out of business. So the subdivision was already on its way. A city approved Oak Harbor to move in 2002 after there was already residents there. And so it's been kind of an ongoing 20-year thing of noise and lights, but they did apply for a lighting permit in 2002. They upgraded their lights in 2020 to LED lights. I invite any of you to drive by in the evening through Oak Harbor and see the house right behind there that's illuminated like a ballpark, and the lighting goes directly into my house. And the noise issue with that too is I'm sad to hear that the planning department or code enforcement doesn't actually go to these places to see what things are what's going on. What I would really like to see happen is more environmental mitigation going on prior to development, prior to licenses being issued. I don't think there's quite enough of that going on in Bend. I think that code enforcement should be out and about checking complaints out. I have complained several times to code enforcement with no action being taken. So yeah, it's been an ongoing thing. There's they did change the zoning there recently to warehouse when it's not actually warehouse. Another lighting issue is the new city department. I guess it's their transportation department. They put on Crusher down at OB Riley. That also has huge light pollution coming from there. So, yeah, a lot going on in this really quiet, peaceful little part of town. So,
Question for you. Have you been able to communicate with the operators of the trucking company?
oh yes,
Because I've been in that spot too, where just kind of two parties need to understand, oh, is this what it looks like from your backyard? So I'm
right.
glad there's been some connection there.
Yeah. No, I've numerous calls to the police, code enforcement, talked to the operators themselves, and the noise ordinance is another thing. The noise ordinance is pretty clear across the board in most of the United States with the 10 to 7 quiet time. Exemptions are, of course, fire departments, airports, emergency, things like that. Oak Harbor does not fall into that exemption in what their business is. And so when I call the police at 2:30 in the morning to ask them to tell them to be quiet, they say that that's out of their spectrum. I work 2 jobs. Sleep is very important for me. My house is never dark and it's never quiet where I live. And I really love my house and I don't want to move. So, and I love Bend.
Ms. Brown, if I'm tracking correctly, you are talking about a site inside the city of Bend.
Yes.
So just to be clear, nothing that we're talking about today would affect the Oak Harbor property because we're talking about
Lighting. It's
Well,
it's overlit. So they changed their lighting, as we said.
yeah, but just to be clear, our lighting ordinance,
Mhm.
these new regulations would only affect properties outside of incorporated cities. We don't have land use jurisdiction inside the city of Bend. So to get relief, regulatory relief on the property you're talking about, you need the city of Bend to change their regulations and then enforce them. So it's valuable for us to hear your testimony
Mhm.
to kind of understand the kinds of situations that exist in our community. But our regulations are, our ordinance would not provide you with any relief inside the city of Bend. Just want to make that clear.
I was going to explain that too. So it's awkward.
Right, right. So the city is all lit up, but you guys are trying to keep the
Right.
Well, we represent all the
Outdoor East Park.
development outside of this urban growth boundaries of the 4 cities. So that's what we're talking about.
And you may have heard Mr. Kowalik say that the city of Bend has a dark sky initiative that they kind of like currently is
Right.
is on hold. So I'd encourage you to connect with your local dark sky chapter, and they can give you all the details about what's going on at the city level.
And you may have some advocates that want to help you with that too.
I just may, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you can push it on.
Thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thanks for hearing.
Bless you.
Is there anyone else in the room or online with the raised hand feature? So online. Thank you for joining us. You're being transferred into our meeting as a participant. And you can unmute yourself and please provide your name and address.
Hi, Courtney Braun, 60970 Alpine Lane, Bend, Oregon.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I wanted to jump on as co-owner of Wanderlust Tours and kind of piggyback on Bill's idea that 80% of folks in their homes don't get to see the Milky Way. For us in Bend, we're so lucky that we have this. And I think it's important for folks to realize that we don't want to take it for granted. A lot of people don't have this, and it's super important for us to rally together to protect it, both from a community standpoint as well as from the tourism standpoint. So we hear all the time, we do a lot of nighttime dark sky related tours in our business. And we hear all the time, we just don't see stars like this at home. Our kids have never seen the Milky Way. So I just thought I would maybe read a quick review from our last Moonlight Starlight canoe trip that we did, just to show how important making that connection to the night sky is for people. I believe that the connection leads to protection. So whether that's in our community or whether folks that are visiting end up going home and doing this in their communities, I think the dark sky initiatives are super important. Our last Moonlight and Starlight canoe trip said, highly recommend. We went out on Paulina Lake and had the loveliest time. He told us the history of the area and pointed out stars and constellations. Paddling along in the dark under the crescent moon, listening to an owl hoot was an absolutely magical experience for both my 17-year-old teen and I. This is the way to go. So we get reviews like this on a daily basis, and it really helps to showcase, you know, how important and how impressive our night skies are. So just wanted to share from a business economic standpoint the benefit to our community that we have for protecting these skies. Thank you.
Courtney, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? All right, so this is our public hearing on the dark skies text amendments. One last call. Is there anybody else for this public hearing? So at this time, for discussion, do we want to close the hearing and leave a written record open or close it for oral and written?
I do have a question for Tanya.
Sure.
Tanya, what about sensor lights? How is the code treating them?
You mean motion?
Motion sensor lights, yes.
I believe that they are subject to the same shielding requirements.
So they have to go down.
They have to be shielded downward the same way any other bulb. I think there were issues before. I know we had heard things from people saying, you know, they just keep going back on, you know, something triggers it. So they're effectively on all the time. So that was a problem. So by having by having them fully shielded and any sort of variation in that, regardless of the timing, they'll still be fully shielded. So it's still ultimately achieving that same effect. As
So
if
the
it
same
wasn't a
light
motion.
trespass expectation.
Exactly.
Great. Any thoughts on closing? Do we need a written record? I guess is kind of the question. More following this. I think we've had lots of good input.
Yeah, I mean, this has been an initiative of the Planning Commission, of the county staff for at least 4 years at this point. I kind of feel like anyone who wanted to weigh in on this has already done so, and I'd be comfortable closing the written and oral record and proceeding to deliberations today.
Sure. Commissioner Dare?
Sure.
Okay, there we go. So the hearing will be closed on this matter, and there is support for deliberations today. Let's proceed if we're ready to go here then. One of my thoughts is I want to thank the Planning Commission, and heard about the enthusiasm and the discussion that happened at the Planning Commission. So there's a lot of positive feedback from the discussion I had, basically thanking for even starting the process. So as I say, it's been a long time coming. And as I've always held on to that tricky situation about enforcement, neighbor relationships is the hardest thing to manage, control, respond to in our community. And this kind of sets us up for another one of those. But there's enthusiasm in all aspects of this dark skies also.
So Tanya, maybe 5 months ago, one of my neighbors had excessive lighting on their house. It looked like they were having a party every night. I mean, incredible lights. And people actually called me about that. So I haven't noticed that for several months now. So somebody must have said something to them, I'm assuming. I mean, with a light touch.
It's possible. I don't have access to code enforcement records right now, but it depends
But
if it was an official complaint or just a kind of neighborly.
Right. Well, it was people within miles of that drive.
I
And
mean,
they were-
that's sort of the interesting issue about this is how much do we expect to be resolved by code enforcement and how much is just kind of conversation? And, it can be tricky depending on who it is. So that's that line that we're trying to tread as staff who, works on the regulatory side. And that's, I guess up for your consideration.
But I'm sure there'll be a call by somebody to either 911 emergency or non-emergency number 2, asking for public safety to show up and point out that that's out of bounds. So, I mean, that's the other enforcement thing that could happen also.
And there have been we've heard of cases that are really egregious, kind of aggressive light situations that have been on another level for sure.
There
But
was,
then as I said, the couple that died in the snowstorm that night, it's really too bad that they weren't able to see some lights. I mean, they couldn't find their own driveway. And I mean, that's the other thing, when we have that kind of weather, honestly, lights can save somebody's life. And those, I don't know the exact details, but whenever there's a snowstorm, I always tell my husband, let's just stay home. We don't need to go for a drive. There was a comment from Jim Anthony, and he felt like the letter was on July 9th. He was giving a suggestion. He said he felt like two sessions needed a bit of an update, and I'm wondering if you know that letter, if that was addressed in his memo.
He had, I'm just pulling it up. He had suggested language for holiday decorations.
Yes.
I believe he had suggested,
He said, actually, people will put lights up for other holidays.
right.
So he had said 90 days cumulative.
Right. And then we also received the suggestions from Dark Sky about having fixed dates. So what we landed on was that kind of hybrid. So it was those fixed dates plus a little bit of the 14 days of kind of extra bonus holidays. So
Okay.
that's what staff landed on as sort of a compromise to achieve both of those things.
Okay.
Hopefully we achieve both of those things, but we tried
So
to
they could
address
use
that.
those lights for, let's say,
Your favorite holiday.
Halloween.
Yeah.
And because in Halloween, in the country, kids aren't going to want to come to your house if it's really dark, right?
Exactly.
No, they're
Yeah,
not.
So we wanted to have some discretionary holiday lighting available. So that's where we landed for this current draft. So it's a little bit of a departure from his suggestion, but we did take that into account.
Okay.
And the light trespass definition, he suggested a measurement base definition, and we went with more of the suggestion from Dark Sky to add that word direct. So just seeing the bulb to make it just clear. So we did acknowledge his comments, but kind of went in a slightly different direction from that.
Okay, I just want to thank you
Yeah.
for
They
his
were good.
insight.
The specific suggestions are very helpful to staff in terms of, playing with the code language. So thanks to everybody who does that.
and in our work session the other day, the idea came up of, yes, having the fixed window around the winter holidays, but making it extend from the day after Thanksgiving, when tons of people want to put up their winter holiday lights, to what was the just
January 1st.
till
The
Initially,
15th
we
of
had
January.
till
December 1st to January 15th, but then the suggestion with the Thanksgiving.
Right.
was to
It should really follow Thanksgiving. for
support that.
Nick.
yeah
Because look out,
and yeah
Friday
to-
after Thanksgiving.
So day after Thanksgiving?
yeah
Yes.
that's fixed, but it's also changing over the from year
I
to
try
year.
to slow it down, but it happens in my
I
house.
mean, yes.
The conclusion date would still be January 15th? That,
That gives people, yes, some people never take their lights down, but they just
Don't
need to
turn them off. Yeah.
Yes. We know those people too.
so day after Thanksgiving to January 15th is what I'm hearing. Plus those 14 discretionary days.
Yes.
Well,
for Valentine's Day and
Whatever you.
Halloween and what have you.
yeah, no, Halloween, definitely in the country, you're going to want to have some lights on so kids can, get to your door.
I wanted to dig in a little bit more to this idea, that this consideration about, effort and, implementation feasibility at county code compliance. And you can answer these questions. Maybe Peter wants to weigh in on some of this stuff as well, but there were a number of ideas that came up about essentially how to use county code enforcement staff time more efficiently to work at these kinds of code complaints if they come up. And can you just review that for us a little bit? You know, what can you accomplish? What can you accomplish? What can you accomplish with mail? And what needs to be done with a code enforcement officer coming out and visiting people and things like that?
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Peter Gutowski, Community Development Director. To your question, and which is a good one, let me set the table by acknowledging that the Code Enforcement Division only receives a handful of complaints a year. And when we receive complaints, we will send out where we've changed our practices as it pertains to a multitude of code enforcement complaints. We will send out a sheriff to confirm if there's violation to county code. In this case, if there was a violation of the lighting ordinance, we typically then would write out to the property owner with some guidance of how they can correct the lighting violation that was seen from the road. And more often than not, that resolves the issue. We just don't find ourselves as other code enforcement violations ultimately do, where we have to go to an administrative hearing before a hearings officer. Have we cited someone for a lighting violation? My understanding is we have, but it's been very rare. And again, I know it's a theme that's been discussed.
Peter, would you mind talking a little closer to the microphone, please? Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Sorry for that. So,
No, it's okay.
So a theme of today's testimony is recognizing not only the importance of having a modernized lighting ordinance, but also the role that education plays. And education, I think, is two-pronged in this example through code enforcement when there's a violation that's affirmed, as well as I would offer for the Dark Skies advocates looking at ways to get information out to the public. But to Commissioner Chang, to your point, you were asking specifically the most effective way for engaging.
Well, effective, I mean, effective, but I was also just as interested in efficiency, right?
Yeah.
You know, because I am concerned about, I basically, I very much support the intent of these regulations. I feel like what we've developed is both clear and simple for people to understand and easily enforceable. I am very interested in these additional measures that would help us actually qualify for dark sky certification. And I'm trying to understand what the additional cost of that is in terms of how we implement that and how we enforce that.
Measurable.
Yeah.
Because I mean, that's not, I mean, those are things, if you have a sheriff's deputy kind of cruise by, that's one thing. If you want the sheriff's deputy or a code enforcement officer to go and look at a bunch of light bulbs, that is another thing.
Right. And thanks for that clarification. It is, to the extent, Tanya's noted this in her presentation, this is we're essentially modernizing the lighting code. And with that effort, there is great interest, as exhibited today and all the testimony today, of Deschutes County pursuing a dark skies certified program. For the latter, that's going to get really complicated. It's something that has been mentioned by staff to explore as part of a work program element. I need to be very careful. I don't want to get in front of the Board of County Commissioners. This is going to be a policy discussion that will admittedly require significant resources. In this case, in this example, for the Community Development Department. I think there's a lot of interest and someone testified on this today, even though this person lives in the city of Bend, we heard this testimony before the Planning Commission. It would be fantastic at the time of, prior to the issuance of certificate of occupancy, that there's documentation that all the lighting fixtures are shielded. We coordinated with the Building Codes Division. That is not something that's under the purview of building inspectors. And so, and you know, even if it was, which it's not, what if the shielding's not done? Are we coming back for more inspections when the building inspection program is looking at primarily plumbing, mechanical, structural, electrical matters, right? So then you're talking about designated staff that are doing this. Again, I don't want to be presumptuous. I'm not trying to get in front of the Board of County Commissioners, but we currently, the Community Development Department doesn't have the staff, doesn't have the vehicles, what the expectations are to do that. Now, if the board wants to explore this under dark skies, you certainly can. I think it's important to acknowledge, just for table setting, Sun River's dark sky program is administered by their homeowners association. So any new development, before it is submitted for the to the Community Development Department for building plan review and permit issuance, all of that development gets vetted by the homeowners association. Architectural design, siding, in this case, lighting.
Aspen Lakes is like that too.
Aspen Lakes is like that. The other point that again, I'm not trying to put my hand on the scale. My responsibility as the director is to allow the Board of County Commissioners to make some informed, have an informed discussion, ultimately provide informed direction if this is something you want to pursue. I think it's important to acknowledge the only county that has a dark sky program in the United States is Teton County.
Yes,
Teton
Dr.
County
Hall.
has a population of 24,000 people. That's 10% of what Deschutes County is. Over 90% of Teton County is federally controlled. Now, we're a relatively modest-sized county of over approximately 215,000 people, and I think federal land is approximately 75%. So we have tremendous assets for dark skies, as noted by the person who testified in the Wanderlust tours. That's in Polana Lake, in Newberry National Monument. So it's difficult for counties to, I think, especially of our size, 3,000 square miles. Again, that's another factor when you think about deploying staff, looking at lighting structures or fixtures in a proactive way for dark skies. You know, we provide issue permits in places like Brothers, in places like Lapine, and in places like, you know, Terrebonne and Tumalo. So that's a lot of distance. Again, it's something that if this board provides direction with community input, is a dark skies program possible? Of course it is. But it's not something that the Community Development Department can absorb currently. We're not structured for it. And again, based on violations that we've received over the years, we don't see the violations. And when we do, the way we approach it is, as I've already articulated, education, engagement. What we see is people respond accordingly. They build on their neighborly relationships, and they shield the outdoor lighting fixtures. The last point that's just, I think, important to acknowledge is our largest light polluters in Deschutes County are our two largest cities. They're the cities of Bend and Redmond. And that's not to diminish the role that the rural county plays for lighting. And I think these amendments are a dramatic improvement. Nick mentioned, I think during the work session, I think our first lighting ordinance was in the 1990s. So this is a major improvement in terms that I think our constituents can understand. But it is Commissioner Chang, I just acknowledge, as difficult as it is, that a dark sky program would come with significant costs and as articulated.
So can you clarify that a little bit, Peter? First off, so you said a dark sky program would come with significant staff costs. Are you anticipating that these text amendments that we're considering right now are significantly burdensome in terms of additional staff costs, or are you saying some of the other things that have been discussed?
It's the latter.
And which specific things?
So dark skies, as I understand it, and Tanya, you can fill it in, but it really it requires certifying that new development, it has lighting fixtures that are, you want to be proactive. And so you want to certify all new development has appropriate lighting fixtures. So I don't have planners that are available to be deployed. We just, just as a reminder, we receive and issue hundreds of single-family dwelling permits a year. We receive hundreds of remodels every year in rural Deschutes County. So, to confirm new construction has the appropriate lighting will take time. And then I think as has been articulated, there's a grace period for a period of time for those properties that don't comply with the dark skies program to get them into compliance. So that's something that I think is over and above what we do currently. So what does that entail? How does one implement it? How does one execute it? It's complicated, and we don't have a lot of examples. Calling Teton County is not going to provide Deschutes County with a point of reference when I think they have one municipality, Jackson, in their county. Maybe there's another one. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with Teton, Wyoming. But
No, there's,
to your point, Commissioner, there's to be on the front end, you want to ensure that new development has the lighting fixtures so you can sign off on them. And then there's the grace period, the code enforcement that would come to ensure that all existing development is compliant by a certain date. So you're talking about education, you're talking ultimately about enforcement.
Now, as part of the new development application process, it is conveyed to applicants that with these amendments that lights would need to be shielded and that they would need to downcast. Is that correct?
We do that under the current lighting ordinance that's stamped on plans that they taking all your thunder.
No, go ahead.
Sorry, but on all plans that where permits are issued, they're stamped to comply with the lighting ordinance, and I believe there's a reference that acknowledges the importance of shielding that lighting. So it's duly noted, and yet our inspectors are not looking at these provisions of the building plan. They're looking for the fundamentals as required under the building code and per the building code division at the state level.
But I mean, you mentioned the scenario where a building inspector drives out to Brothers to do an inspection. That's a 45 minutes, hour, to get them out there. And then they're checking, engineering, they're checking a variety of things already. After they've spent an hour to drive out there, I mean, to spend 5 more minutes to walk around the outside and take a look at light fixtures, and just note whether they're downshielded or not. I mean, in some ways that's more efficient. That's like getting more bang for your buck for the hour drive that they've just spent to go out there.
It sounds simple enough. Randy Scheid is our building official, coordinated with the building codes division. I'm respectfully just relaying what he communicated on the record before the planning commission. And it sounds simple enough. What if the light fixtures aren't done? Then the building inspectors coming back out there, we're not signing off on the certificate of occupancy, or we're not signing off on the ag building or the barn. This is another thing. Is the dark sky, sorry to feeling like passing the buck, but if to the extent that the Board of County Commissioners is interested in a dark skies program, I'm not sure it's the Community Development Department. The Community Development Department is right? We focus on land use entitlements, long-range planning, of which this is a particular project, but enforcing a dark skies program is, one can make an argument, it's at a different category? Is it a different level of staff? I mean, we will do the bidding of the Board of County Commissioners. If you find that this is an important project, we will put it on the work plan. We will research it. We will engage the community. We will run the numbers and tell you what it will cost to implement. So again, this is a difficult position for me to be in, because at this level, I'm obligated to tell you the complexities that come with implementing a dark skies program outside of modernizing the lighting code. But I report to the Board of County Commissioners. Our department is responsible for regulating a multitude of codes. If this is something that's important to you, we will, of course, present you with the best information so that you can make an informed decision on dark skies, and we'll figure out how to best implement it with community support as a partner. So again, I'm in a difficult position to just articulate.
Yeah, we're good here. So understood. There's a package in front of us, and then we've had advocacy for, taking it farther right now already. So this is, I think, what we're talking about here. So maybe we can get back to the package. Also, just acknowledging our agenda. We are kind of working through deliberations. I don't know if we'll either finish them today or input to a kind of a final package in front of the Board of Commissioners also. Is there any other?
I mean, I guess kind of where I'm at the moment is I really I like the idea of keeping the aspirational goal of getting to dark sky certification in at this point in time. I'm not sure whether it makes sense to add some of the measures that have been recommended. But part of my thought process is everyone who's spoken has emphasized the value of education. And I think that adopting the package in front of us with the modifications for holiday, the time window for the holiday lighting, it sets us up to do another wave of, ambitious educational efforts, where we can fold in considerations like color spectrum and, total lumens into the general education we're providing around other things, which might make it possible to do sort of a two-stage process. I mean, we do a lot of good we adopt this package right now. We do a lot of good education in the community about outdoor lighting, and then it's possible we get to a point where we can adopt additional measures, additional requirements that nobody even notices because we're all just doing it already. That's kind of the rosiest scenario. But I'd like to believe that that's actually possible. So I guess I'm signaling that I'm open to moving forward with the package that's been presented to us today.
Great. With the edits, the proposals that
About the window for holiday lighting and maintaining the aspirational goal of getting to dark sky certification in 5 years.
Any thoughts on?
So Peter, I really appreciate your comments about follow through. I'm thinking like I have a light on my barn that, okay, that has to go. I rarely ever turn it on, but it's the wrong kind of, it's the wrong kind of light. So, and then I think about my neighbors, and I think when the other neighbor is setting off fireworks, now that's where we have to call the backup number for 911 and have somebody come, because those are actually already illegal in Deschutes County. So here we are, we're bringing up a whole new set of issues that you're supposed to implement into I mean, that's what this will do, right? When we approve this, that your department will then have to take into account on plans that they have the correct lighting fixtures?
Commissioner Dare, I think we will follow the same procedure. The plan, new development will be stamped to conform, to underscore that the lighting ordinance applies to outdoor fixtures. I think that provision of code is referenced. There may be some materials that we can possibly include that just underscore the shielding, and then it's the status quo as it stands today. If someone is concerned and under the current amendments of the code, if they can see light trespass from a distance where the light bulb is seen, they can respectfully submit a code enforcement complaint, and we will investigate. And then if it's confirmed, we'll follow up with a letter that confirms the complaint, and then directs them to shield the light. And like I've said previously, we've seen really good results with that level of communication. If it doesn't get resolved, then eventually, we have to treat violators of our code consistently. It could potentially go to administrative hearing, but as I mentioned, that has been a rare event. And our priorities, I think the board, you have approved the code enforcement manual that we rely upon on a regular basis. Code enforcement's priorities are eminent public health and safety issues. And so that informs how we approach outdoor lighting violations. We don't lead with a heavy stick because we have hundreds of cases that are far more serious with all due respect to outdoor lighting in terms of eminent issues. We are focusing our efforts there, and still following up to do what we can to ameliorate that lighting violation. So that's a long-winded way of saying we will continue our practice as it's in place today.
Can we, with that letter that goes out, can we include some of this additional information?
Oh, absolutely. We would, of course.
About the color spectrum, about the lumens.
Ideas on shielding, I think there's some, our plan was to promote, if the board adopts this modernization lighting code, we want to do public outreach. I mean, we're going to deploy Eric Brion and Kim Ketcher, and I probably have a dedicated site of our modernize the website that we have now.
We have a county podcast on this subject.
We can have
Just talking about that.
And so, Commissioner Chang, yes, we would provide materials, examples that one might contemplate that fulfills one's need to have outdoor lighting and at the same time comply with the code.
So a point of clarity for me is, we do have advocacy, the tourism agencies, the tourism operators, short-term rentals in the rural county. I mean, there's natural advocates all around this. With the input pointing out that we're not sure how we might want to step it up to make this code enforcement situation more decisive. Let's make it the culture of Central Oregon. And I've always said that. I mean, let's celebrate the fact that we do have dark skies. We do have a population that's growing. We do have 75 or 79% public lands is the way I say it. So yeah, I support proceeding with the package as presented with the discussion we did today. And as I say, leaning into showing support, advertising, advocating all over this, and then see where it goes. And then we can get down to, so let's, bring this back to another board meeting. We can get down to, do we put a time frame in 6 months later, review where we're at for possible follow-up or what would we want to do for certification efforts? And maybe it isn't us. I mean, Visit Central Oregon, destination marketing organizations. Maybe that's where, some of this leads. But yeah, all kinds of ideas around it.
So and can you let me know, is Redmond doing anything along this line? And I did look up Teton County, and there are like 7, 8, 9 little towns besides Jackson, but they're all, like Teton Village is 500 people or something. So they're very small. And they do have if you look on the light, you'll see all the lights I'm going like, they have a dark sky and yet they've got the ski lifts and it's a really short day in there. And if you go skiing there, yeah, it's all lit up. So Peter, great, it's great to bring that up.
I actually I'm not aware of efforts within the city of Redmond, but I can reach out to them. I just know that obviously Sisters has been a biggie, and as Bill Kowalik noted, Bend has had something kind of brewing in the background, but I'm not familiar with Redmond, but I can.
I'm going to drive through Sisters like later than 8:15 and see what's really going on. Yeah.
Anything else?
There has been this real emphasis on education. So I would encourage us at that, at the same time that we bring back this consideration of, what else could we do to get towards dark sky certification, that we really review the kinds of education efforts that are happening in the community, to, to see what we can do from the county level to set those up best for success.
Well, and we could also flip that around and say, look for that advocacy partner who wants to review the situation and bring it back to us instead of having our staff do it. So as I say, I'm thinking.
Yeah, no, I want to
destination
understand.
marketing.
I want to understand what's going on in the community because, frankly, the education efforts that have been happening in the community it hasn't been us.
Mhm,
You
mhm.
know, there's been significant investment from destination management organizations in educational efforts in our community. So I just want to understand what those are, and understand what our role is in supporting those.
So maybe of like a little round table of people that want to be involved with this to figure out who's leading, who's following, and who can be an advocate.
I can prepare some sort of outline of kind of potential
Yep.
partners, what we've already accomplished with them. I know, Dark Skies offered a lot of their expertise, so we can kind of circle the wagons around potential options there at a point. Would you like me to do that for when we bring back the code for approval, or is the timing on that? Or kind of at a later date when
We can break it into two, and yeah, I would support that.
the code could probably that could happen very quickly.
Yeah, so let's
Yeah,
get that package and then,
To assemble that kind of a panel, it's going to take a little while, but it would be great to do the panel soon.
Yeah.
But to do the adopt the amendments sooner.
And I think someone should make a trip to Jackson Hole because what I just saw on my phone was really lit up. And I'm going like, how did they get that designation first? The only one in the
we can
country.
learn about that.
Well-
What's that mean? Yeah.
What?
There's lights and then there's downcasting, right? I mean,
Oh,
you can have a really bright light shining a lot of light on the ground or on a ski run that isn't
Snow, yeah.
isn't putting light up into the sky.
It looked pretty lit up to me.
We'll learn more. Okay, you have what you need for bringing it back.
So at some point soon, and I'll set a date with Brenda, I'll come back with the code that reflects a little bit of changes from this discussion. And then in the future, we'll organize outline/discussion about potential outreach and education and all of that.
So the code package will come back to a board meeting for an agenda item for finalization.
Yeah, and just one quick note that, there's discussion of the aspirational certification. That language won't actually appear in the code
Mhm,
itself.
mhm.
That's kind of a separate, that's a separate task. So that won't be in the actual zoning code, just to make that clear. But the guiding
Understood.
principles will. So,
Understood.
Thank you.
thank you.
So
Peter
do
and
we
Tanya.
support 3 years opposed to 5 years
Oh, good
for
question. Thank you.
enforcement or implementation? That would be good clarity
Planning
item,
Commission
huh?
Recommendation was to make it 3 years instead of 5, for that's, not having
Mhm.
to do with certification.
And I support that. Let's just lean into it. It's not like we need to stay away from this at all.
Support that as well.
Do you?
Sure.
Oh, there you go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Everybody who participated.
And we don't need a formal motion today. To direct staff to bring that.
Yeah.
I'm looking at Dave.
Nope, your direction's clear.
Thank you.
So I'm proposing maybe take a 5-minute stand-up break here, and then we'll get back to our second reading for Deschutes County Comprehensive Plan and then a deliberations. That's important. So we're going to take a 5-minute break. So we are back from a quick break. At this item, number 9, second reading of ordinance reconsidering Deschutes County 2040 Comprehensive Plan.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Nicole Mardell, Senior Planner with Deschutes County Community Development. So today staff is presenting Ordinance 2025-007 for consideration of second reading. This action reconsiders Ordinance 2024-007, which originally adopted the Deschutes County 2040 Comprehensive Plan. That was approved on October 2nd, 2024 with a 2-to-1 vote. Following approval, the plan was appealed to the Land Use Board of Appeals by Central Oregon Land Watch. For those who might be interested, the Land Use Board of Appeals allows for a reconsideration process to address any issues that were raised during an appeal that were not vetted at the local level. So we took advantage of that process and initiated the reconsideration public hearing process. Following those 2 reconsideration hearings that we had, the board conducted first reading of Ordinance 2025-007 on June 25th. The following day, we received a new interesting LUBA case, the Destiny Court case. So because of that, on July 21st, the board reopened the written record to allow additional written testimony specific to minimum lot size requirements for rural residential areas, cluster and plan developments, and to address any other items in that Destiny Court LUBA case. The record closed on August 1st, and staff proposed some amendments to some of the policies and findings in the comprehensive plan document. And on August 11th, the board deliberated and voted 2-to-1 to adopt those new revisions. Pardon me. So today the board will consider second reading of the final updated version of the Deschutes County 2040 plan on reconsideration. As a reminder, the deadline for us to submit this decision to LUBA is September 8th. And just again, for those who might be interested, the decision will be sent to LUBA and any interested parties, those who commented or participated throughout the process. The original petitioner, Landwatch, may choose to drop the appeal, continue the appeal under the initial petitioner's brief, or they may choose to submit a revised petitioner's brief. Additionally, any other party aside from that original petitioner may also appeal the decision. So with that, I look to the board for a discussion or a motion.
Great. So we've been through this a few times. Comprehensive plan, the visionary document that defines development, land use, historical, and future in a jurisdiction. This is an update from 2011 comprehensive plan. Nicole, I want to thank you very much. I mean, what a career builder for you seeing this process, as it's because it was most of a year to get to last year when we first adopted it even, and now it's getting bounced around. But, you know, the consultant and the community outreach, this professional product that has been put out here in this changing landscape and the passions of what folks want to see for development rights here in Deschutes County. So kind of a big picture statement, and I have some other thoughts too, but anything, Commissioner?
I didn't really want to add anything other than to make the motion.
I was on a roll ready today.
I know. I feel, it's, thank goodness we had a little change and now we're proceeding ahead. So it's a fascinating world. And I will repeat again that we do have 250,000 private EFU acres in Deschutes County. That number needs to be out there in the public, just like been teaching people about the dangers of juniper trees and how one just exploded right down the road from my house last night. And it was not surrounded by any burned ground. I mean, it was an ember that fell in the tree and then it exploded. So thank you, Deputy Blaylock, for sharing that with me today. So I'm happy to make the motion unless
Other introductory comments.
I can.
Of course, we'll have
save
to.
my comments for discussion, but or I could just speak them now. This comprehensive plan process has been marred by ignoring the input of our community, our constituents. From the beginning, we had the opportunity to modify the comprehensive plan when LUBA sent it back to us for reconsideration, and we didn't really reconsider very much.
I wrote a guest column for that was run in the Bulletin on Friday. I don't need to read this to you all, but
No, we read it
yeah,
ourselves.
but I'm going to ask to have it put into the record, for our meeting today. Just a
Well,
copy
thank you
for
very much. Like another copy?
Oh, yeah, I have several.
Uh,
Sweet.
And, the basic point of the guest column is that this comprehensive plan encourages the creation of housing that we don't actually really need in Deschutes County. We need workforce and affordable housing. We don't necessarily need more destination resorts and luxury rural residences than the amount of vacant buildable lots that we already have. So that's just by way of explanation that I will be voting no again on this comprehensive plan, and we can proceed.
So a couple thoughts. As I say, it was pointed out to me, and I might have mentioned this in a public meeting in the past, but in the early 70s, Napa, California decided they wanted to shut it down. They loved it so much, they determined that, hey, we can't allow anybody else to develop here. It doubled the population and doubled the prices instantly. So it sounds like that's what you're advocating for,
No.
is shutting down
No,
development.
No.
And also, if we do that, it would be a detriment to small farmers who want to be able to do farming because the prices would slip away. So as I say, that's what it looks like from my point of view. You deny it, but that's what it looks
What's a
like.
detriment to farmers who actually want to farm is speculation that they can get their EFU zone property rezoned for a much higher priced use.
But the next
and
step is
then-
if you shut it down,
then you
those prices
price
will
out the-
double.
you
and it'll
price
be
out the
pricing
farmers.
out.
No, no.
Well,
we
as I say,
have
different views.
we have
We definitely have
existing
different views.
pathways. We have existing pathways to rezone land close into urban growth boundaries for the housing that our community actually needs. Again, there are 30,000 units of there are 30,000 rural residential units outside of incorporated cities in Deschutes County. That those properties will come on the market, go off the market. They will flow through the market, making those kinds of rural residential opportunities available for people for ongoing time. And we also have learned from PSU that the projected population growth in the rural county is going to be 5,000 people over the next 25 years. And we have,
that's in a controlled
we have
environment
over
in the state of Oregon.
we have over 4,000 rural residential lots available. So we do not need to create more. We do not need to create more destination resorts. And what we do need to do is create more housing within our incorporated cities in compliance with the state land use planning system, which directs most new growth to occur within incorporated cities.
So we just saw
That is the grand bargain of the land use system for the state of Oregon: preserve farm and forest land and open space and resource land, and grow your cities in an orderly, land efficient, infrastructure efficient, transportation smart way.
Okay. I would like to tell the story about where I used to live in Calabasas. Originally, they had 87 homes approved on this ranch. And guess what they did? They said, no, 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 no. It was in the Coastal Commission. They made it down to 15 home sites from 87. So I'm going like, wow, was that an opposite trend of what we see here in Bend? And the fact that the 710 project, the whole goal of that project by the developers is to fund several nonprofits in our community that are so worthy of those funding sources that could be constant. The Giving Plate, Furnish Hope, and I believe there's another one too. So it's a rocky hillside, and definitely it's not going, the 710 acres, really, I think the utilization for those charities is really to be commended, that people recognize it's really hard when you're always having to raise money and actually help our neighbors. And so they were actually doing something at a much higher level. And I've been to the property. It's really,
So
it's not worth
Maybe-
talking about.
Just want to point out 710 is still an open appeal. This is
Oh, I can't talk
before us
about it?
today, So probably not.
But he,
the best.
it's mentioned right here in the start of his article. So I just, I'm not ignoring it.
No, I didn't specifically.
Yes, you did. We're building luxury, the first paragraph said you're going to build luxury 10-acre ranchettes. Well, it's for a higher purpose. So I just, in case the record didn't remember that.
So
I hope whoever, my guest column made no specific mention of specific land use applications or decisions.
No, it just says we approved a new comprehensive plan. That's what the first paragraph said, black and white. It's right here. So thank you for handing that out.
Comprehensive plan. That's what we're talking about today, not a specific comprehensive plan amendment and rezone application.
So there's a long history of balancing rural development in Deschutes County, destination resorts, Sun River from the 1940s, World War II efforts. Black Butte Ranch was followed up with that. Tollgate was a rural development in support of Black Butte Ranch and Sun River, so people had a place to live if they were going to be involved in that. Commissioner Chang, you mentioned high desert zone is a topic that may be able to be a legislative discussion east and west of the Oregon. As I said also again last night, you put a seed in the ground down in the Willamette Valley somewhere and money grows. Up here, it's a function of water and a short growing season. It's a totally different environment. But a rural western atmosphere sure is a great place to be able to live. There's other counties in this spot also. Eastern Oregon, people have been asking for, hey, what do we do with this resource land that's probably non-resource land, which was put in as a placeholder in the late 70s and the early 80s. We'll get back to it someday. The Big Look was stopped hard after legislative efforts to try to say, maybe we'll get back to these, catch-all zonings that were put in place. Cost of farmland, is important, and the vision there is very important. It's a function of water, and it's a function of the environment we live in. As I say, the comprehensive plan, the previous versions of it have acknowledged this enthusiastically. Let's keep the farming where it can be. And during marijuana deliberations years ago, it took me a while to understand why some of the rural residents that had larger kind of lifestyle farms were so upset, because they want to just see those green fields and the irrigation going in the summertime, which is lifestyle. So there's lots of push and pull in this whole big topic. I'm very comfortable with the comprehensive plan as it is. As I say, we're not departing. We're not taking that step of promoting shutting down rural development. And Commissioner Chang, you're doing a great job justifying how nobody needs to housing. But the goals of the state of Oregon, hey, let me just finish here, please. The goals of the state of Oregon is let's go build more houses. So far, we've seen 6-story apartments that are coming on very expensive in downtown Bend with huge tax breaks that are coming for them also. And there's more of these out there. So the current people that are even living here are foregoing revenue for dense developments inside the cities because the tax increment financing. And we do represent the rural development opportunities. And we should take it very prudently. And I'm not saying go, open up and let it run full speed ahead. And we never have. We've never have as an organization. So, it's interesting that there's so much organized pressure on this, and this is the political push and pull on it. Hopefully we're going to get this thing landed, because obviously there's an effort by advocacy organizations that are going to try to keep this bouncing around during an appeals process for another year even, just so maybe the book can be reopened with a different mix of commissioners. And it's amazing how many times I open up the newspaper, and it says, Commissioner Tony DeBone and Patty Adair do this, and Patty Adair and Tony DeBone do that. It's like, I am so proud of everything we've done here. And it's almost amusing getting attacked so specifically every day. Just wanted to share.
Yes.
There you go.
So, I will start by saying that anyone who wants to say that I'm anti-housing is full of it. Like I said, no, it's my turn to talk now. Like I said, there are 30,000 units of housing in the rural unincorporated county that will circulate, that will provide opportunities for people who want a rural residential lifestyle to live that, to buy into that. We also have over 4,000 vacant buildable lots to accommodate a projected population growth of 5,000 people in the rural unincorporated county over the next 25 years. And after that point, PSU's projection is that the population in the rural unincorporated county is going to go down. So do each of those 5,000 people need their own home? Are those going to be single resident homes? Probably not. Yeah, there's plenty of opportunity for rural lifestyles, and there's plenty of opportunity for people to build more homes in the rural county for the foreseeable future. So do we need additional lots created out there in destination resorts in rural residential zoned areas? I don't think so. And if you actually want to honor farming, what you could do is you could talk to some real farmers. You could talk to some of the real people who are out there doing amazing things in our high desert environment. They've figured out how to amend the soil. They've figured out how to extend seasons. They've figured out how to do agriculture and produce things in ways that might seem miraculous, to those who only want to look at the Willamette Valley and believe that that's the only place that agriculture can be done. They have figured out, no, I am talking right now.
Oh my God. Okay.
That applies to ranchers as well. There are some amazing ranchers in our region. One of the most famous beef cooperatives in the United States, Country Natural Beef, was birthed right here by people who understand how to produce product from the land. Are they profitable? I'm not sure if they're profitable. Should that be a metric for farmland? If 80% of the farmers in the United States don't make a profit, but they do agriculture because they're passionate about it, is it our right to say, no, you can't do that? We're going to rezone this land around you and drive up land prices so that you can't afford it and you can't do agriculture there anymore? I don't think so. So, yeah. So I am not saying we don't need more housing. I am saying that we need housing in the right places, and we could be working within our state land use planning system to deliver the land that is necessary to produce the housing that we need with a different comprehensive plan.
So another topic a little bit, I do want to improve rural existing parcel areas. So southern Deschutes County, there's a possibility of Goal 11 exception in sewers. We could make some premier rural residential areas with the existing parcelization that's happened before Oregon's 1973 timeframe even. If groundwater protection is a high priority, let's get out of our own way and do it. And one of my scenarios is, there is no way a residential neighborhood that says you have to feel guilty about having a septic system out here is going to want to push a ball uphill the whole way with resistance and appeals. We've got to turn that around, and we could make some beautiful rural residential areas out of the existing platted areas. And I'm referring to southern Deschutes County. And what if, and we haven't got there yet, but what if we could offer adopting a paved road? So then you put in a sewer, you put in a local improvement district, you pave the road, the county picks up the maintenance, which obviously we're not there right now. But all of a sudden you take you know, a platted area and you just make it a beautiful rural residential area. So as I say, and this is kind of the statewide land use on top of local land use, but we've got to get out of our own way sometimes, even to improve the existing parcelization that we have. So
Do you have a
It's
do you
another
have a
topic.
breakdown? So there's something in the range of 6,000 standard septic systems in shallow groundwater in South County. Do you have a sense of how many of those are currently rural residential zoned already?
well, they're all rural residential zoned.
So what are you arguing that we need to create more rural residential zone for?
This is a different topic.
Okay. Okay.
Who was
Well,
talking?
And I'm not arguing that we need to create more rural. I'm arguing for the reasonable land use, property rights, system that is in place. And it seems to be you're advocating to stop that.
And
So
with
I'm just
no,
holding on to
no,
what we have.
No, the folks that you're talking about, I worked very hard this last legislative session to get that to support that
Yeah. and
that
after the
legislation
legislative-
that will now make that Goal 11 exception opportunity available to all of those folks out there. That if they're close enough to an existing wastewater system that they could economically feasibly tie in, that opportunity is there right now. And if we're, if it's not happening and it's not happening because of planning issues at the county level, then that's our problem because we're moving too slow.
Well, as I say, after the legislative session finished, you said, what was the bill number? 11 something or whatever,
1154.
was put in place for us. And that was after the legislative session and you pull it out like, here, I got something for you. I'm like, I had no idea what was going on there. But I'm like, that's partnership.
You
that
were
we could do.
notified. You were notified about that legislation during our legislative meetings in the middle of the legislative session. So if you weren't tracking that bill, that's not my fault. That's your fault. Because you were told about it in a legislative meeting. And we can go back and watch the videos if you want, and I can point it out to you. But frankly, I don't think that should be
Oh, no,
my
it's
job.
not blaming. I'm just pointing out that, you know, as soon as the legislative session's done, you pull out this thing like it was done for the Southern Deschutes County citizens.
No,
It
no.
was just never talked
No,
about.
what I said was that this bill could help communities like ours, and I was explaining that to legislators while they were crafting and recrafting that bill, and yeah, we could be one of the first communities out of the gate to exercise that opportunity, to serve our residents, to protect groundwater quality, to fix a problem that has been festering for 15, 20, 25 years in Southern Deschutes County, if we wanted to.
I do want to.
I do believe that we did put in for a grant. I remember, Peter, we were actually hopeful that we were going to get the funding for that grant. And then unfortunately, that didn't happen. But we, as a board, I believe we're totally supportive of, you know, making a serious cleanup in South County.
And now the state has provided us tools for us to do something about it and not to seek some unrealistic federal bailout that would only fix a small part of the problem with millions and millions of dollars.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. So thanks for pointing out that I'm full of it today. And then also you started the morning off with wanting people to shut up because of assumptions about how fire got started. So please, yeah, you're getting real tense these days. I don't know how we can work through some of this stuff to serve the people without escalating.
Well, I'm pretty hot about this comprehensive plan because I've been providing evidence, data, input, echoing constituent concerns throughout the process. And I see very little of it in this comprehensive plan.
And we are in a very challenging time because we're getting different information from different people and different news sources and different online information streams. So as I say, when you come in here and say you're just so crystal clear about the will of the people, and I'm getting a different information about the crystal clarity that I have about the will of the people, let's acknowledge that. I mean, I am not seeing what you're saying.
Read the record. Read the record for the comprehensive plan. Read the record of
So then
the constituent input that was provided.
there's 200,000
overwhelmingly
people in
called
this
for.
county, correct? And there's advocacy organizations that wind up a subset of people, maybe in the 10s and 20s, that get really wound up to send us emails. Yeah, I can go read the record, but those passionate advocates that are trying to tell us to do something are not the population as a whole. I mean, that's discounted in this situation.
To claim that the population as a whole wants something different than what the people who have taken the time to provide input to a process want, without any evidence of that, is dishonoring and discrediting your constituents.
So as I say, I spent a week at the county fair. I go to events all the time, and I'm sure you do too. And I connect with human beings at all levels, all the time. We've got a great opportunity. People know who I am for input and response. So this is how I digest the input and relationships I have.
And I know
it's different than you.
And I know that you encourage everyone you talk to about an issue to come and weigh in.
Oh, no. So it's interesting because I had the OPB reporter contact me, said, well, don't you run home at night and write an email to all your people that you want to tell somebody to do something? I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. That's not my style. So
Just last night during our county college presentation, you were strongly encouraging anyone who cared about the dark skies text amendments to come and engage and provide their input. That's what we should be doing. Anyone who feels strongly about an issue or an initiative that we're working on, we should be encouraging them to weigh in. And if they're not weighing in and they have been encouraged, then that says something.
it says that they're people that trust their elected officials to look out for them. There's a relationship there. That they don't need to stay up and write emails in a feverish passion in the evening to tell us what to do because they understand who we are and what the values we bring to this elected office.
And people who haven't seen their elected officials doing what they elected them to do are going to talk to us. And if you're hearing from lots and lots of people comments like that, you are not representing me, then as a elected official in a democracy, you should be listening.
Okay.
We needed a little bit of this. Thanks for standing by, everybody. Yep.
Oh, sure.
Ready for a motion?
Yes, I think the room is ready for a motion. I move approval of the second reading of ordinance number 2025-007 by title only.
And I will second that from our discussion in this situation. Any other discussion on this? Seeing none, Commissioner Dare,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang.
No.
And Chair will vote yes. So this is second reading, ordinance number 2025-007. An ordinance superseding ordinance 2024-007, amending Title 23 of the Deschutes County Comprehensive Plan to incorporate revisions resulting from the Deschutes County 2040 update process. This has been the second reading.
And then I'll move adoption of ordinance number 2025-007.
And I will second it. Any other discussion? So, I mean, I'll just acknowledge, thank you very much for working through that just now. A lot to say, a lot of layers on this thing. This is the comprehensive plan of Deschutes County. I think of this as a kind of a 20-year vision document with a 10-year implementation effort. And then so 10 years later, you try to slide that window out for another 10 years for the 20-year document. So that's what we're talking about here. The comprehensive plan It is a guiding document for development and our county code and efforts that we do here in Deschutes County along those lines. So calling for the vote, Commissioner Dare.
Yes.
Commissioner Chang.
No.
And Chair will vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners. So the effective date of the 2040 plan will be 9 date of adoption today, or if appealed, the date the ordinance is no longer subject to appeal. Updated on the LUBA process.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Nicole. So, Nicole, did they do the dark skies when you were in Sisters, or was that after you left?
After I left, yeah, the City of Sisters, I believe, updated that ordinance this year.
Okay, all right. Thank you. We're so happy you're back. Have I told you that lately? Anyway, no, thank you so much for coming back.
And we're so happy we're going to keep you for the next item. So
Yes.
item number 10, deliberations Cascade Academy Amendment and Zone Change involving approximately 22.5 acres west of Highway 20.
Thank you, Chair DeBonne. Again, for the record, Nicole Mardell, Senior Planner. Today, the board will deliberate on the Cascades Academy Plan Amendment and Zone Change Request. So for background, the property is composed of 7 tax lots totaling 22.5 acres. 4.03 of those are zoned surface mine and designated surface mine. The remaining 18.47 are zoned EFU and designated for agriculture. The applicant is seeking to change the comprehensive plan designation to rural residential exception area and the zoning to multiple use agricultural. The applicant has stated the purpose of the zone change would be to allow the potential expansion of the existing neighboring school, Cascades Academy, onto this property, although they're not seeking approval for the school or any site-specific use as part of this application. A hearings officer hearing was held on November 14th, and a recommendation was issued on February 26th. The hearings officer recommended denial due to a lack of findings demonstrating Goal 5 compliance. Following that process, the applicant supplemented the record to demonstrate compliance with Goal 5, including submittal of an economic, social, environmental, and energy analysis, or an EC analysis. The board held a public hearing on June 18th and left the written record open for a total of 21 days, 7 days for new evidence, 7 days for rebuttal, and 7 days for final legal argument from the applicant. The record closed at 4 p.m. on July 16th. I would like to note that a procedural objection has been raised by the applicant related to this open record period. That is the first item in your decision matrix and will kind of guide the path for how far we get in deliberations today. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have right off the bat, or we can dive into the decision matrix as well.
Yeah, so this is deliberations on the matter. Thank you for the matrix, and the matrix will finish up with the EC discussion also, because it kind of works through the different topics. Any discussion or thoughts?
No, your matrix seems excellent. Thank you so much. They are such a good idea. That the details, I really appreciate your thought pattern putting this out.
I had another question come up, which I hope staff can answer since our hearing. We've seen some soil analysis information, a lot of class 7 and 8 unirrigated. Then we also heard during the hearing that there are still water rights attached to this property. And so I would like to know what the soil picture would look like with irrigation, because there is water available. And so I don't know whether that can be easily brought up or not, but it would be helpful to understand, what the soil classifications are without water and what they are with water.
That's a great question, Commissioner Chang. I think it will take me a moment to look through the record. So I would recommend that the board begin discussing item number 1 in the matrix, and then I can use some of that time to look through some of the record materials where that information would be.
Thank you, Nicole.
So where is that information? I'm just kind of trying to think, where are you going to go for that?
Yeah, so the burden of proof includes the original soil study provided by Gary Kitzrow. When DLCD was reviewing some of these soil studies for compliance with the specific OAR that they review to ensure that it meets, their qualifications for a soil study, they don't actually review the content, just that it followed the correct process. I believe there was some amendments to those soil studies, which are in the record. So I was going to take a look at.
The soil study itself, just making sure I understand where we're
Correct,
going.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, when, those soil studies, I mean, the soil scientists who deliver, craft those, they say, this soil is like this without water. And they'll also, give
Mhm.
an understanding of what the soil was capable with water.
Correct. Yes.
So first item, should the evidence submitted by Central Oregon Land Watch during the rebuttal open record period be considered in the board's decision-making process? So this is a decision for us, just acknowledging the record and the process of the written record, rebuttal and final response. Any thoughts or, I mean, it's pretty obvious. Well, I don't want to say anything else yet.
The fact that it was July 9th and legal has recommended that the board not consider this submittal in its decision-making process because it was dated July 9th.
And I'm not seeing it on the decision matrix. What was the deadline?
The deadline for new evidence, I believe. One moment, please.
You just said it, didn't you?
It was 7 days following June 18th, so I believe that was
The 25th?
25th, correct?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if this is classified as new evidence and it came in after the deadline, then we can't consider it. I don't think we can consider it.
And I support that also. So we will not consider the confirmed, new information during that rebuttal period.
So next to the next item then.
Yep.
So I guess to address Commissioner Chang's question, I think just what I'm able to find, I think just for the purpose of deliberations today, each of these soil classifications in the original staff report included the NRCS designation, which shows the general, standard. So some of these, when irrigated, are, 6S, some are 3S or 3E. But the site-specific soil survey, again, provided more detail and found that, again, these are generally class 7 and 8 soils, I believe even with irrigation. So that's what I could find just for the purpose of deliberation. But if you'd like, I can go back into the record and provide a more detailed response at a future meeting.
Yeah, I would love to know that.
So do you think you want to, are we not gonna be able to complete deliberations, maybe? I mean, I'm just, because if we want more information, where do we want to go today? Make a few more decisions here and see where it goes.
Yeah, well, I want to know that there's pathways that this could go that, that it's not that it's only a minor consideration as well.
Sure. I think one potential option to consider for the board is that I could bring that information, depending on the outcome today. If the board were to move through deliberations today, I could bring that information to you during consideration of the final decision. So if you wanted to complete deliberations, you could still have that opportunity to, I believe, since it's material in the record, it's not new information, I could still provide that to you,
Yeah,
but
we
it
could
wouldn't
do that.
limit your ability today.
We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, with one caveat, the deliberations have to be open and public. So to the extent that's going to impact your deliberations and it's done privately, that would not be appropriate. So, I mean, the record is the record. It's available for the board to review, and they have reviewed it. So,
And I'm sorry that, that this question occurred to me very shortly before this hearing. Right.
So you can go ahead and walk us through the matrix a little bit. And then
Okay, so we'll move on to issue area number 2. So the question is, can the surface mine zone be changed for the subject property? Can it be rezoned or redesignated? So the opponent's position from Central Oregon Land Watch, they believe that the rezoning request violates an element of the Deschutes County Code relating to the surface mine zone because the tax lots were previously zoned surface mine, but then rezoned to EFU in 2001. So Land Watch interprets this code provision to prevent further rezoning after that initial rezoning process. The hearings officer and the applicant stated that found that the criteria that the opponent noted is not applicable in this situation. There is no restriction for subsequent rezonings after initial rezoning. And these properties in particular that are currently zoned surface mine are utilized for storage, not actually for mining. So the hearings officer found that this was not an issue. The staff comment, we agree with the hearings officer's findings, and I wanted to note as well that DLCD submitted evidence into the record from Doug Yami, the Department of Geology and Mineral Industries, confirming no history of mining on the tax lots, and they didn't provide any comments or concerns about the subsequent rezoning of the now EFU zoned land. So the question for the board, if yes to the question, can the surface mine zone be changed for the subject property? The application may be approved and we'll move on to the next item. Or if no, then the application may be denied and you'll complete your deliberations.
My vote is yes, it can be approved for this point.
And I come to that same conclusion also.
I would support the hearings officer's recommendation on this.
Moving on to issue area number 3. Is the property in violation of previous land use approval and subject to DCC 2220-015A2? So Land Watch asserts that conditions of approval associated with a site plan review from 1993 associated with a previous reclamation plan on tax lots 300, 301, and 302, the rezoned property that's now EFU, are unmet, and the reclamation plan is incomplete. Therefore, the county cannot make any further land use decisions until that's met because it's essentially violating the code. The applicant's position is that the county previously determined reclamation requirements from that site plan review have been completed. The 2001 rezoning decision of the property, which followed that site plan review, established that all previous requirements were met and no code violation has been filed or found on the subject property. The hearings officer finds that that section of the Deschutes County Code does not apply, no violation has been determined to exist, and no violation was considered in that 2001 rezoning decision. Following rezoning of the property, conditions of approval from past surface mining related decisions are no longer applicable, the hearings officer found. So staff recommends that the staff agrees with the hearings officer on this interpretation of the county code, utilizing information from the record.
And Nicole, can you, I want to unpack this a little bit. We got the indication during the hearing that the reclamation may have been inadequate. But you know, if the prior owner did not do an adequate job of reclamation when, you know, when the surface mine was transferred from surface mine, how can that, or does that affect the question that we're looking at right now? I mean, you know, was it done or not? Was it done adequately or not is another question.
Yeah, I believe that's a good question. I might look to Stephanie just in case she wants to supplement my response. But the reclamation plan was required prior to rezoning to EFU. So that was considered as part of the rezoning decision in 2001. If it were deemed inadequate, it should have been addressed at that time. Since that decision was made and is now final, we can no longer revisit that process. So it's our understanding and the hearings officer understanding that, again, that issue has passed. So we cannot consider it as part of this. But Stephanie, if you had any other thoughts.
Thanks. Good morning, everyone. Stephanie Marshall, Senior Assistant Legal Counsel. Thank you. Yes, I think Nicole just captured it as I would have stated that the issue was resolved back on the date that the property was originally rezoned and cannot be revisited or reopened for further consideration. That time, if someone disagreed with that decision, the time to appeal has long since passed.
How long were they given to appeal that decision in 2001?
Well, appealing that decision to LUBA would have been 21 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just wondered. Okay, so it was a long time ago.
Well, I'll support the hearings officer recommendation then.
So will I.
Yep, I agree also. So the answer would be no to that question.
Thank you. Moving on to issue area number 4. Does the property qualify as agricultural land being predominantly class 1 through 6 soils? So the opponent's position, Central Oregon Land Watch, asserts that the applicant cannot rely on the soil study to change the zoning designation and instead must rely on the NRCS classifications per a specific element of the Oregon Administrative Rule. They also assert that the former surface mine has been reclaimed in accordance with the applicable Dog-Yami Reclamation Plan, including replacement of topsoil with high-value soils. So the time to raise concern regarding the soil quality on the property should have been raised during that 2001 process. The applicant in this case is arguing if there was concern that it's not agricultural land, it should have been addressed when it was being rezoned into exclusive farm use. As the applicant did not raise the issues at that time, Landwatch believes the property constitutes high-value farmland. The applicant notes in their materials that they provided an Order 1 site-specific soil study for the property. The study was prepared by a certified soil scientist, correctly classified the soils, which are not predominantly class 1 through 6. It's a credible source to disqualify the property as agricultural land. Per Oregon Revised Statute, property owners are able to rely on this more detailed Order 1 soil survey. The hearings officer did vet this issue and found that the subject property is not defined as agricultural land under Goal 3 in the statewide planning rules and goals. The hearings officer found that the Oregon Administrative Rule referenced by Landwatch is not applicable because they apply to the analysis of particular uses. So it's in a different context of administrative rule than as it relates to this application. The hearings officer did request that the applicant provide confirmation from DLCD that the soil study meets the requirements of OAR 660-3335, which is how they demonstrate that that soil study is sufficient, which, as I noted previously, the applicant has since provided. So staff agrees with the hearings officer findings and recommends that the board, approve this item, select yes on or no on this item rather.
Mhm.
Yes, that seems to make sense. No, and yes, it may be approved.
If the question is, can we use, a site-specific soil study instead of the NRCS data? The answer is yes, but based on my earlier questions, I'm not prepared to say yes or no on this item right now.
In support of the soil study being acknowledged by DLCD, I do come to the conclusion that the answer would be no to the question.
It may be approved. Thank you. I believe now we'll move on to issue area 5. Other properties suitable for farm use. So the opponent's position, Central Oregon Land Watch, asserts that the property can be used for livestock grazing on its own or in conjunction with other land, and that the property has historically had an irrigated pasture. I would note that due to the earlier item, issue area number 1, we can ignore the second paragraph there as it relates to the rebuttal testimony, which is no longer being considered. The applicant asserts that the subject property does not qualify as agricultural land as it relates to ORS 215-203, with an emphasis on the definition of farm use and required elements of profitability within that. The applicant explains that there are limitations on the farm use, even if considered in conjunction with other parcels. And there's evidence in the record that includes analysis of grazing and testimony from farmers with experience engaging farm uses both on the subject property and other properties in the surrounding area. And the applicant has also addressed the suitability factors associated with the relevant Oregon administrative rule as well. The hearings officer considered this and found that the subject property does not qualify as agricultural land. The hearings officer agreed with the applicant's quantitative and more detailed analysis, found that the analysis from Central Oregon Land Watch was not as detailed or sufficient to demonstrate that the subject property is suitable for farm use. So they found that, again, the property is not suitable for farm use. Staff concurs with the hearings officer recommendation and the analysis from the applicant and recommends no, which is may be approved.
So the terminology all over this one is kind of awkward because I mean it's a nice rural parcel and there's soil out there and somebody might try to farm, possibly not for a profit and money is the problem that kind of boils down to sometimes. But you know, we're having to follow the ORSs and OARs and the wording as used. So I would conclude that or support the hearings officer conclusion also, but that the answer is no. Is it suitable for farm use?
And I would say no, and it may be approved.
If this is still going to tie back to this question of the soils with or without water, and I can't answer this question right now.
Please do.
Looks like we may have some information here.
Yeah, our Community Development Director, Peter Katowski, is here to provide some information to address your question. Commissioner Chang.
Admittedly, thank you for the introduction. Admittedly, what I did is I went on the record and which is available, our formal record for this file is on the Community Development Department's website for this particular land use matter. And the detailed soil analysis is Exhibit 7 of the burden of proof. And on page 10 of 157 of Exhibit 7, the soil scientist summarizes the individual lot capability classes. As I understand it, he went out to every single tax lot, and there are several. Mm-hmm. He broke it down into acres and did detailed soil analysis. Some of those tax lots, as Commissioner Chang, you know, had some irrigation. And on page 10, and I think this is the summary, they conclude, and I think it's also noted in the beginning of the soil analysis report, that the capability classes are 7 and 8, and the specialist breaks it down in terms of acreage and then the percentage. So I'm just trying in real time to try to provide the information that you're asking for, Commissioner Chang, but that am I?
Yes.
Is that
So
any assistance?
sure. So again, wanted to note that there were some refinements to the soil study, but I don't believe that this particular piece of information changed. Yeah, in this specific breakdown, just going through again what Peter mentioned, there's a breakdown of several different soil areas in their acreage. All of them are 7 and 8, and there are 2 that appear to be 6 if not irrigated or 3 if irrigated. That being Klein Falls soil type, which is 1.34 acres of the property, and the other being the Plainview soil type, which is 5.67 acres of the property. So again, it looks like there was a small portion of the property that was in that 6 non-irrigated or 3 irrigated category, but overall, because we look at the productivity of the entire subject property, the soil scientists found that, again, the majority of the property is class 7 and 8 soils.
And Nicole, read the notes on the right column. I think do you think that's helpful there for the 2 that are?
Sure. So for Tumalo shallow variant map unit soil, less than 20 inches. I'm not a soil scientist, so please forgive my mispronunciation of any of these words. To brittle Durapan. Shallow to fragmental substrata is for the Plainview fragmental variant soil type. The next is Klein Falls, very deep, very sandy terraces. That's one of the ones that's 6 when non-irrigated, 3 if irrigated. Plainview, that's the other 6 non-irrigated, 3 irrigated. Moderately deep, sandy outwash. The next soil type is like Skillet, shallow to bedrock toe slopes. The next is impact areas, which is roof, asphalt, concrete road, so just elements of the property that are developed. Ditch and berm, so another area that's, again, not really fit for farming. Noted that there's a depth of 5 feet plus adjoins a berm. Rubble land, consolidated or dense surface rock, mine spoil, so leftover related to probably the mine operations, complete topsoil, subsoil removal, same with partial mine soil also designated on the property, and impoundment area. And that's an area dug with berm.
Okay,
So those are
so,
some of the notes if it's helpful.
Can you just recap for me how many acres are 6 with, with opportunity to bump to 3 if irrigated?
Yes.
There's actually an analysis page on in my book that shows how many acres with the capacity.
You want to share that?
Sure,
It's about 7 acres or so.
there's a breakdown.
And I also wanted to note, in the applicant's burden of proof and also in several of their open record materials, both during the hearings officer process and the board's open record process, they provided much more detail on use of irrigation. So they provided some of the constraints to placing irrigation on the property, including a letter from the previous property owner discussing some of the issues and limitations with some of the juniper on site, rock outcroppings, et cetera.
Um,
With that information, I wanted to ask Commissioner Chang, would you like to revisit issue area 4 or 5, or would you like to move forward?
It's complicated because if a third of the properties that we're discussing are actually potentially pretty good agricultural lands, to make an overall determination on the whole application area is don't really like doing that. I would hope that the property owner with an understanding of the agricultural potential of parts of their property, as they think through future uses of the landscape, the landscape that they own, they would try to do something with that agriculturally suitable land.
Well, this page has an incredibly clear breakdown, as I just shared. When you have 1.46 acres, it says that 52% of it is 7 and 8. 1.63 acres, 58% of it is 7 and 8. 0.94 acres was 78.7, 7 and 8 classification. 9.95 is 76.5 acres is 7 and 8. So there isn't 6.03 acres, 57.4% were 7 and 8. So really, and then there's 1.5 acres, 100% of it is 7 and 8. And the other less than 1 acre, 0.99 acres was 0.51.5. So honestly, it looks like it's really up there. So thank you so much for this, my binder, because it's nice to be able to pull the details out, and clearly there's not much good land there.
Absolutely. And wanted to note that's on the same page that we were reading off of earlier, page 10 of 157 and 8.
Yeah, this page it's not numbered, but it's from the soils. It's from the last year, the report from 24, I believe.
Well, it sounds like, unless there's objections, we'll move forward to issue area 6. So this area relates to, the question for this issue area is the subject property's EFU zoning necessary to permit farm practices. And I should note, there's an error here. It should say on surrounding properties. So the applicant's position is that the agricultural production on tax lot 300, which is one of several properties adjacent to this property, will end if the rezoning of the subject property is approved or could be impacted by this rezoning. Therefore, the EFU zoning is therefore necessary. The applicant asserts there's no farm use on the subject property. It's been, in particular, the surface mine zone property has been in storage use related to mining. The EFU portion has been in post-mining use following reclamation since the early 1990s, but doesn't appear to have established a agricultural operation. The hearings officer did review this and agreed with the applicant's analysis, considerations, and application of relevant laws specific to this question, and staff agrees with the hearings officer's findings on this issue. Yes, I'll leave it there.
Yeah, coming from surface mining and understanding the history of just storage related uses even. So I would conclude that it's not required. So the answer would be no.
And I would make the same determination, no, it may be approved.
I'll support the hearings officer's recommendation on this one.
Thank you. Moving on to issue area number 7. Will the plan amendment zone change result in urbanization such that an exception to goal 14 is required? So Central Oregon Land Watch asserts that the level of density authorized by the multiple use agricultural zone through specifically cluster and plan developments is urban in nature. They also note the property is close in proximity to the city of Bend's UGB and will attract residents to the subject property who would otherwise reside in the urban growth boundary, and will attract people residing on the subject property potentially if that a residential use is developed on the property to the UGB for urban services. They argue the rezoning would make residents and users of the subject property reliant on urban public services and infrastructure, and the increase in density, proximity to the urban growth boundary, and reliance on urban services all point to a violation of Goal 14 in the absence of a Goal 14 exception. The applicant notes kind of two types of arguments here. The first is that this question has been asked and answered before LUBA in the past on similar applications. And LUBA found that in 2016, the county specifically amended its comprehensive plan to provide that the rural residential exception area plan designation and related zoning, MUA 10 and RA 10, should be allowed to be applied to non-resource lands without an exception to Goal 14. That amendment, including review of MUA 10 uses on non-resource land, has been determined to be compliant with Goal 14 by the Department of Land Conservation and Development and LUBA. The second piece of the argument, the applicant notes, while not conceding that analysis of Goal 14 is required, they still provided it just in case. So they provided site-specific analysis for the subject property utilizing the Curry factors, which is a very well-known piece of case law. And through that, the applicant notes that the MUA 10 zoning allows a density of 1 dwelling per 10 acres if residential development were to happen, which is a rural density. The Department of Land Conservation and Development has placed limitations on what are called magnet uses that could draw UGB residents to rural properties if they're within 3 miles of a UGB. The MUA 10 zone includes these limitations on certain specific uses, which addresses the issue of proximity. Urban services are not of concern. Sewer service is prohibited by Goal 11, and an increase in the density of development is not allowed if a public water system is developed. In total, the applicant found these factors demonstrate that the use is not urban in nature. The hearings officer agreed with the applicant's analysis and found it to be unnecessary to apply the Curry factors. The hearings officer found that rezoning the property to MUA 10 does not result in urbanization of the subject property. Staff finds that the applicant has provided sufficient analysis of this issue in the record, and although the hearings officer found it unnecessary to apply the Curry factors, the applicant, through their analysis, did demonstrate that the use is rural in nature and therefore does not require a Goal 14 exception or violate Goal 14.
This
this question or this issue runs me down several rabbit holes. One of the fundamental questions I have about this application is if schools are an allowable conditional use in EFU zone, why are we even looking at a rezone application? I heard some arguments that MUA would be less restrictive to the certain kinds of school developments that are desired, but I didn't hear a whole lot of specifics about that. So I'm not feeling very persuaded, by that argument. And it raises the concern that if we rezone this property, then it would open up opportunities for rural residential development, which then backs us into the questions of is that urbanization or is that not urbanization? Basically without having a better understanding of what the applicant wants to do with this land, I don't feel like I can say no on this. I will say yes, and that doesn't mean that it is going to be developed in urban ways. It just means that we haven't precluded. I don't think we've precluded opportunities for urbanization of the property.
Yeah, I think we've been down this path a little bit. I do not think this results in urbanization. Urbanization to me is, 4 to 7 or 15 units per acre or whatever, and we're talking 1 per 10 acres. So I just don't see this as urbanization.
I'm voting with the hearings officer that yes, it may be approved still. So I guess I would say no, and yes, it may be approved.
Moving on to issue area 8. So this is posing the question, will the proposed zone change designation change to rural residential exception area and MUA 10 result in new uses that would conflict with the Goal 5 resources on the property or associated scenic corridors? The opponent's position, Central Oregon Land Watch, asserts the applicant is required to apply Goal 5 provisions because the proposal to rezone and redesignate the property could add new uses, those in the MUA 10 zone, onto the subject property, and they weren't previously considered. Therefore, analysis under OAR 660 Division 23 is required when a new use may conflict with the Goal 5 resources on the property. The applicant noted that there is no need to apply Goal 5 because the county's comprehensive plan and zoning code have been acknowledged as compliant with Goal 5 and provide adequate protection for Goal 5 resources on property zoned MUA 10. The hearings officer wanted to note, before I get into that, wanted to note that a portion of the property does contain mapped wetlands and is within the county's landscape management overlay zone associated with the river, Deschutes River and State Highway 20. The Deschutes River is a state scenic waterway as well. There was an argument about a previous LUBA case that Goal 5 analysis is not required. The hearings officer did not find that to be applicable in this case. So he did note that Goal 5, the county cannot rely on previous Goal 5 analysis unless the analysis specifically considered impacts from the uses in the new zone on all specific properties. So because this property wasn't zoned when the EC analysis was done originally, it can't be relied on per the hearings officer. As noted previously, a hearings officer recommended denial because there wasn't sufficient information in the record to demonstrate Goal 5 compliance. Following the hearings officer process, the applicant did provide their EC, economic, social, environmental, and energy analysis to demonstrate compliance with Goal 5. That revised EC notes that the 1992 EC considered aesthetic impacts of development in the corridor and did not analyze specific uses or properties. So therefore, the EC may have been broad enough to contemplate conflicting uses in the MAA 10 zone. It's possible that no further analysis is necessary, but the applicant did provide an EC to supplement that 1992 EC work in the abundance of caution. Staff notes, again, kind of regardless of your decision on this, we request that you evaluate issue area number 9, so we have findings in the record in case this is found to be applicable.
Nicole, can you just refresh me here? So the key goal 5 resources we're concerned about with this property are the scenic resources or the scenic overlay, and a bit of riparian related wetlands.
There are wetlands that appear to be associated with an irrigation district.
Yeah, there's an irrigation canal right on the bottom of it because
I remember.
I drive by it constantly when I'm going the back way
Mhm.
to Sisters, and I'm like, yes, it is. There is that teeny little stretch there, but you can't really tell it from the road.
Yes.
Those are the only goal 5 resources that are a concern, in related to this issue.
That is correct. Oh. Well, so just to clarify, so the resources are wetlands, and also the the scenic corridors associated with the Deschutes River, which is also a state scenic waterway, and State Highway 20, which is a scenic road as well.
So 2 different kinds of scenic.
River and road. Yeah, okay, yeah. So I support proceeding with evaluating the provided EC.
And I support that also.
I would as well.
So our final issue area number 9. The question is the EC analysis sufficient to demonstrate compliance with statewide planning goal 5? The opponent's position, they noted following submittal of the EC analysis that there were still concerns and that the analysis is deficient and the application continues to fail to comply with goal 5. Specifically, the opponent raised concerns regarding not considering high-value farmland uses in their review of conflicting uses. They argue that the EC also incorrectly analyzes impacts of the new conflicting use on the subject property and instead should analyze impacts to the entire scenic resource corridor associated with both Highway 20 and the Deschutes River. They also argue that the EC does not accurately analyze the consequences of a decision to allow, limit, or prohibit the use. And overall, they find that the EC proposes to allow the new conflicting uses rather than limit the use through the LM zone, landscape management zone, which mitigates impacts to the county's significant view corridors elsewhere throughout the county. Wanted to note, of course, the hearings officer did not consider this as it was submitted following that process. The applicant noted following the board hearing in the open record period that they did provide an updated EC responding to some of the comments from the Department of Land Conservation and Development. The revised EC notes that the 1992 EC considered, again, the aesthetic impacts of development generally in the corridor and did not analyze specific properties or uses. But the applicant did clarify that high-value farmland uses are not analyzed as the soil assessment demonstrated the property does not constitute high-value farmland. Therefore, they don't need to analyze uses in that category. And they did provide more extensive analysis of the consequences of allowing, limiting, and prohibiting the conflicting use compared to the original EC. They also amended the the outcome of the EC, and this EC proposes to limit the use through existing provisions of the Deschutes County Code, specifically through the landscape management combining zone and wetland provisions. Pardon me, staff concurs with the applicant, finds the information in the revised EC is sufficient to demonstrate compliance. Wanted to note that in reviewing this, the revised EC appears to address some of the comments from DLCD staff that we've seen in the record in a staff perspective, and we haven't seen any further comments or concerns from DLCD staff. So with that, the question for the board is this sufficient? If yes, then it may be approved. If no, then it may be denied.
Yes, I would say yes. It does appear that it can be approved.
And I support the fact that, yeah, the LM zone is something to be acknowledged. It is partially through the property. The property is set back from the river and the highway there. But future development will follow the standards, earth tones and height restrictions and whatever else comes in. So I do support that the EC does conclude that it's appropriate. So I would say yes to this question also.
I, uh, I'm really uncomfortable with the way that these classifications as, high value farmland, non-high value farmland are either 0 or 1, are very binary. As discussed, there's a substantial portion of this property that is, good soil land, and there are irrigation rights available. But that said, that is these binary kind of choices are all that we have, and with that, I'm comfortable with using this EC.
Thank you very much, commissioners. So based on this review of the EC, it appears that in each category we had at least 2 votes, the specific approval criterion were met. In several cases, we had 3 votes, that the applicant demonstrated compliance, and could be approved. So at this time, I wanted to request if the board would like to vote on the application in its entirety.
So yeah, so this is a moment to just vote yes or no. So then there'll be a final decision that will be voted on in the future either way. But this is helping provide clarity to the applicant and people that are following this topic. So is there a motion? Oh, yeah.
I'd like to ask a couple more questions. Sure. So, as I said, at the highest level, my biggest concern about this application is that the applicant has stated that they want to use this property for school uses. School uses are an allowable conditional use in their current zone, EFU. So, I'm not. If the applicants, through some decision process ends up choosing to use some of this property for rural residential development, I'm not excited about, making that kind of a decision. So I do want to ask if there are ways, in a decision document, that the property owner the applicant could actually commit, in a enforceable way that this land would be used for school uses. And, so I see some potential head nods, back there. But I mean, kind of legally, and procedurally, is that something that can be built into a decision? Or is that something that could be done in parallel with, or, coupled to this decision in some way?
Hello again, Stephanie Marshall, Senior Assistant Legal Counsel. I'm thinking here before I state something. So one of the concerns would be that if we start carving out uses from the zone, if it is approved as to be rezoned to MUA 10, is then it becomes essentially a new zone, and without naming it as such. And so there are concerns regarding spot zoning, and then there are also concerns regarding the notice provided to DLCD regarding the proposed rezone. Because it could essentially be a hybrid zone or a different type of zoning. As far as, conditions, so a condition of approval would have that impact, could potentially raise arguments in that regard.
Okay.
would there be anything that would prevent the applicant from voluntarily, independently of this process, doing some kind of a deed restriction?
I don't see that. I mean, that would be applicant driven and not a requirement of the board as part of its decision.
And I believe that was stated on the record on June 18th. The applicant noted, and just looking back at my notes, this is not verbatim, but I believe the applicant noted that they had some potential concerns about having a specific condition as part of a land use approval, but a private agreement might be more amenable to them. So as part of the decision, since the record is closed, I'm curious if it would make sense for us, as we will work with the applicant per our code, to draft the ultimate decision, if we could put together potentially, 1 or 2 versions for review by the board, including, kind of a request, but maybe it's not a specific condition of approval for a private deed restriction.
I would like to see that.
And just as a reminder, the board asked an applicant, I can't remember the name of the applicant, out there by Sisters, by Tollgate. And that applicant is currently developing 2 alternative proposed findings and conclusions for the board to consider.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that I really appreciate applicants who tell us what they want to use the land for when they bring in a rezone application. And this is a way to potentially play that out so it's more than just a handshake deal.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd be interested in seeing us proceed in that way.
So, and I wouldn't go down that path. I support, a land use right. And if we, come to this conclusion through this process, I would not be asking for that. So as I say, there's maybe difference of opinions here.
And I wouldn't ask for it either, honestly. Okay, it's 22.5 acres and 15.53 acres are class 7 or 8. Only 6.97 acres are actually less than 7 or 8. So, I just, I'm happy that they're here with us and wanting to do something for a school that has a reputation, a positive reputation. Yeah, it's like, do we not need more positive schools in our community that do an outstanding job?
So is there a motion? Just basically a motion to approve.
I move we approve the application for, do you want the number? 247-24-000-392-PA and 373-ZC. The Cascade 393, excuse me, Cascades Academy of Central Oregon, their plan amendment zone change.
I indicated what kind of approval decision I could vote for, but that is the kind of approval decision that I could vote for, and I'm not comfortable supporting just a blanket approval decision. So I'll vote no.
Well, so I'll second it and then we'll get to a vote here. So it's already been stated here, but I'm excited to support the school, the vision and mission of the school. There's already current development out there. And I've, now that we're in this process, I kind of take a look at it as I'm driving by and it already kind of looks good from the landscape management point of view. And then also knowing that roundabout is out there, because that's the big thing, being able to crisscross across the town there, knowing that roundabout's completed is a very positive factor also. Obviously, neither one of those are part of this decision process, just things I wanted to share. So calling for the vote or any other discussion.
Yeah, I mean, if we're just talking in general about the school, I will, I want to express my support for Cascades Academy. I mean, I know so many young people who have come through Cascades Academy, fine young people who've gotten a great education. It is a real asset to our community to have an educational institution like this. But when we're looking at the narrow questions of land use, I just would like a guarantee that this land will be used for a school.
Okay. Calling for the vote, Commissioner Dare,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang,
No.
and Chair will vote yes. So yeah, final paperwork will follow. Decision.
Yes, thank you very much, commissioners. We'll work with the applicant to draft the final decision and bring that to the board for approval at a future meeting. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. At this time, other items. Labor Day coming up now, so this will be, the end of the summer, right? The end of the summer is. Hopefully we'll get some rain and get that fire under control. Maybe you'll be out of a level 3 evacuation.
Well, according to my husband, I am.
Yeah, so depending on what information source, and it'll propagate through sooner or later. Anything else for this meeting?
Just a little bit in terms of what we're anticipating for this fire. The real concern has been that with this very unstable low pressure system sitting over that area, it could produce, especially on a day when there's some sun hitting the ground and heating things up, it could produce a thunderstorm activity, which could have winds up to 30 miles an hour. And even though they have a bunch of line around that fire at this point, you blast any spot in that fire with 30-mile-an-hour winds, and there could be embers that carry half a mile or a mile away, and could just blow the whole thing. So
we're not out of the woods yet.
Yeah, we are not out of the woods yet. When this low pressure system moves, I think I'll feel a lot better. And when that system moves, they're also anticipating that the winds will shift to a west wind pattern, which will mean that the wind is blowing on that fire from a direction that it has not blown in from yet. So folks who are out to the east of the current fire area should all be watching that very closely. And I hope that I just hope that everyone's aware of the potential fire conditions that we might be facing in the next couple of days.
I'll be on KBND radio in the morning, just the regular scheduled rotation, and then I will get to the cooperators meeting also tomorrow at Sisters Rodeo Grounds and follow up on what the current status is. And I did not attend the community meeting last night in Sisters, but were you both there?
Was there?
Yeah. So thank you very much. Anything else? We do have executive.
We need one very quick executive session. We are going to do it on Monday, but you folks, a couple of you had to leave, so we didn't get to it.
Okay.
And it's timely. I need direction.
Oh, let's do that. Okay, so executive session. Go ahead and introduce that for us.
Board of Commissioners will now meet in executive session pursuant to ORS 192-660, which allows the board to meet in executive session. The purpose is for litigation, to discuss litigation matter with counsel. Designated staff and the media are allowed to remain. However, the media may only report on the general topic and not the substance of the meeting. Recording devices are not permitted. No final decisions will be made in executive session. At the conclusion, we will open the doors and invite the audience back into the room.
Okay, so we'll break and we'll be back.
Announce to the world.
We're back from a short executive session. At this time, please proceed as discussed. Is there anything else for this board meeting? Seeing none, meeting adjourned.
I guess I have to call.